Are you gonna make me watch and explain all the Friday the 13th movies? Oh my God! I just wanted to have fun with the other teens like me at the sleepaway camp, man. Fine. This series, which I can already tell is about 12 movies too long, begins pretty similarly to basically every youth camp. Like, there's always some moment during the first night where one half of the weirdos sing Christian songs accompanied by a single, poorly strummed acoustic guitar. Smelly cat smell. While the other half sneak off to hook up in the woods and get murdered by psychopaths. It literally happens exactly that way every time. And speaking of POV, it's 1958, and you're a psychopath looking to murder some horny, bad Christian teens at a sleepaway camp called Camp Crystal Lake. And also, your breath is on an echo delay somehow. Speaking of that, any horny teens that are watching this should note that this is the correct use of POV. POV, or point of view, should refer to the person behind the camera since we're ostensibly using their POV. If a horny tween were ticking or talking this, they'd probably be like, POV, you're about to get murdered, but that isn't correct. Check the AP style guide, you losers. Anyway, POV, you're looking at a toy that was very popular in the 50s and still sells for like $100 on eBay. Okay, two teens make the sex size that I recognize instantly from all the porn magazines I used to find in the woods as a kid. Okay, I didn't actually read a bunch of woods porn, but if you Google woods porn, around page 3 of the results, you probably will stop getting actual woods porn and learn a fascinating part of American history. And the boy teen takes the girl teen to a sex barn to do the sex in the sex barn, or maybe it's a sex shed, I'm not sure the official sex nomenclature.
Check your lease, man, because you're living in city.
Except POV, you're watching the teens place a severely inadequate coat on the filthy sex barn floor before starting some odd pre-sexing foreplay and acquiring a copious amount of sex roundworms. And even more POV, you're stabbing the boy and nimbly thwarting the girl's incredibly athletic escape attempts. And then POV, you're stabbing somebody in slow motion. And now POV, I promise, I'm stopping now. I just sometimes get stuck on a riff and I can't break it, but POV, I'm stopping the riff. I'm sorry, POV. Now watch as this little butthole of a title card breaks a bunch of glass everywhere. Somebody's got to clean that up, title card. But thankfully, they'll have plenty of time as we get an opening credit sequence that lasts forever, but is also literally just white text on black. So it's at least visually stimulating. To an Amish community, it might be as exciting as Star Wars, but Dave says that he hates the Amish. A lesser YouTuber would maybe provide trivia or background information on the movie during this time, but that's because they're weak and they don't understand the value of a hard day's unresearched stream of consciousness rant for multiple hours.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind.
Anyway, now it's apparently June 13th, 2014. I mean, that's the closest Friday the 13th in June to present day. And here's an apparently insane woman backpacking. Insane because she asks directions of a gas pump guard dog.
You speak English? How far is it to Camp Crystal Lake?
Which I have to assume is a figment of her imagination because who has a gas pump guard dog?
Okie dokie.
Hey, if it's all in her head anyway, might as well check this imaginary dog's imaginary genitals. Am I right, Dave?
Hi, girl. Excuse me. Hi, boy.
That's a classic Dave move. He's checking everybody's genitals.
Okie dokie.
And also, apparently, it's June
1979?
according to Wikipedia, which isn't present day at all. This movie lied to me. I bet none of the on-screen deaths are even real. It is all Hollywood liberal lies.
I will eat your ass.
Apparently, the imaginary dog can't talk or provide clear directions, so the woman is forced to ask a few humans.
All the girls up there gonna look as good as you.
But everybody is put out like, that's a bad leg, bruh. And a few creepy old men come up, and one named Ralph is like,
It's got a death curse.
and we locals, we call it Camp Blood. Wow, that's inventive, Ralph. Was it between Camp Blood and Camp Dead? camp fatal injury, camp people died here.
Damn it, Ralph, get out of here.
Whatever. A different creepy old man shoves her butt into his truck to take her to the 20 miles away camp. And apparently she's been hired to be a camp counselor for a recent camp reboot, but the trucker tells her that she should quit because the place is creepy, bruh. And back in the day, a kid drowned and 2 horny teens were slashed to death in POV. And she's like, well, the camp mostly services inner city youth. And he's like, well, this is your stop. Bye. Cut from there to some other horny soon-to-be counselors to inner city youth teens cruising and just freaking blasting banjo music. I mean, just letting that rip like it was Metallica or another band from the 80s that people remember and or was featured in Stranger Things. And speaking of things from the 80s, hey look, it's Kevin Pigmeat.
Absolutely not.
They passed a sign that reveals Crystal Lake was founded in 1935, meaning that the first few groups of kids probably ate nothing but bowls of dust. Google it. 1935 sucked.
You know what? I saw Bluebird on 43rd Street.
No. We now meet the owner of this place, a mustachioed, shirtless, bespectacled wood chopper in short shorts named Steve. We also meet Alice, who's helping Steve install a gutter because apparently the camp won't actually open for a couple weeks. And hey, Steve is apparently creepy?
Very pretty.
Which is unexpected given his entire vibe of guy who jazzercises to transcripts of spree killing confessions. Alice is considering leaving the camp, but Steve convinces her to give it another week. Then Alice runs through the woods for no reason, like she's been hit by a tranquilizer dart and is slowly losing all function in her limbs. There are other characters, and I'm sure they have names, but they're pretty interchangeable as far as I can tell, and they've probably all been made up anyway, like the rest of this deceitful film.
This really isn't your cup of tea, is it?
There's the aforementioned hot boy Kevin Pigmeat, another less hot boy, a very goofy-looking boy, and then 2 attractive girls. Whoever edits this section can figure out what I mean.
What do I do?
Some of them are better at sexy talk than others.
You know, you're beautiful when you're angry, sweetheart.
Elsewhere, hitchhiker girl hitchhikes with somebody we can't see, which means they're bad news. And what do you know? They blow past their turn and she jumps out of the moving Jeep, runs into the woods. Well, I mean, POV, you're chasing some insane vagrant lady through the woods. Sorry. She limps around like a regular Dewey.
Cut deep.
But ultimately gets her throat slashed in a way that medically speaking is bad. I'm a doctor. Elsewhere, the counselors frolic joyfully and clad scantily in the sun. One mentions they like to eat Rocky Road. And everybody laughs like it's a joke, but considering that Rocky Road was invented during the Great Depression and is actually named after the Depression, as in it may be a rocky road ahead, but at least you can eat some shitty ice cream, her joke is actually incredibly insensitive. I assume this is why they're all gonna be murdered. The murderer is actually cancel culture personified. Wow, political.
I'm gonna come.
Speaking of dick kids and their shitty jokes, the weird-looking counselor pretends to drown, forcing the other counselors to demonstrate just how many kids are definitely gonna drown when the camp opens. First, we've got Kevin Pigmeat making the general shape of a dive while performing the actual act of belly flopping. Then multiple counselors push off in a single canoe, although only one of them actually brought a paddle. And finally, Alice throws a life preserver approximately 6 inches from the dock, actually making it more difficult to bring the kid ashore. Of course, it doesn't matter anyway, because he's just pulling a Squints from Sandlot and turning a CPR attempt into a sexual harassment lawsuit. Later that day, Alice's hair is atrocious. Even worse, there's a snake in her cabin, causing, once again, every single counselor to break in and destroy the cabin in their efforts to kill said snake. Apparently, these kids are a horny hive mind. They do everything together, and they're an effective horny hive mind. Now, a brief aside to thoughtfully discuss the American Indian culture. Wow.
I'm gonna come.
Oh, shit.
Also, a motorcycle cop shows up looking for Ralph. He's not there though, so he just peels out. Just a second. Oh, yeah. There we go. Vroom! Off to commit a hate crime for justice.
I'm gonna come.
Oh, actually, Ralph was there.
Hello.
He was actually just hiding in the pantry until he could pop out and warn them all that the camp was bad and to test the horny hive mind's responsiveness, and it is as quick as ever. Look at them. They all just show up. Ralph leaves and one of the boys engages in some macho talk
Emergency generator.
before macho-ly activating the generator.
Oh, here goes.
Then Pigmeat and one of the girls make out to the weirdo's horny dismay. They continue to make out in some cabin and Pigmeat lights a little candle before giving her the raw bacon, which is a great way to set the mood and probably get trichinosis.
I don't get it.
Although they should probably be more worried about getting whatever disease that the weird dude has, since he's lying on the top bunk above them and he's all slashed to death. And that's why I never take the top bunk. That and my recurring dreams where I'm a champion high diver.
I've literally made a boatload of mistakes.
Pigmeat's lover needs to rock a post-coital piss, so she heads to the communal piss cabin, and to be fair, Pigmeat gets gutted on the bottom bunk, so maybe just avoid bunks, top and bottom. Back to the piss rocker. It feels like the killer is in the bathroom with her, but in reality, the scene is just an excuse to check out some naked, filthy feet, and in that, it delivers. Hey, when did this movie come out? 1980? So right around the time that Quentin Tarantino would have been 17? I don't know how, but I bet those two facts are connected.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
Then the owner of those disgusting Tootsies says what I always say when a bunch of kids unsuccessfully try to come kill me with nail guns.
Come on, kids, you can do better than that.
She tries to wash her hands, but the sink isn't working. So instead of switching to another sink, she actually fixes the original sink, which is actually fairly impressive and feminist. Did this movie just get political? It has things to say.
Do not come.
Then she hears a noise, investigates, and gets axed right in the head. Which is less impressive, but maybe still political? Does the axe represent the patriarchy? These movies are a little beyond me, I think. The three not dead characters play strip Monopoly, which is actually the exact thing they make all the newly dead people do in hell.
Unless, of course, he's chicken.
Even worse, Alice is clearly cheating. She claims that dude rolls
High 8.
but it's clearly a 10. Is cheating at strip poker a sex crime? Dave, you would know, right? Like, what did you go in for? You were like, you landed on Boardwalk, that means you have to give me, the full Monty. And they were like, I rolled an 11, and I'm an undercover cop. The Baltic Ave, which means my butthole.
With a butt like that, you're talking $30, $40 tops.
Anyway, Dave's a sex pest. The non-Alice girl leaves, heading to the same bathroom that was recently rocked by a piss and axe murder, and she uses the recently fixed sink, and it's still working, so I guess that other girl should have been a plumber. So much wasted potential. Woohoo! This girl, on the other hand, desperately needs to invest in a toiletries bag. Whatever, she isn't immediately murdered, so she heads back to her cabin and dons a Victorian nightgown and lights a little Victorian candle and lies down to read her little Victorian book, but before she can die of consumption or being sad or whatever it was that Victorian women died of, she hears a little kid's voice saying, "Help me!" And it's like I've always said, live like you're in the Victorian era, get haunted by a Victorian ghost.
I was just sitting in the U-bend thinking about
John C.
It's a tale as old as 1820 or so. She wanders around trying to find the wee voice while a hand turns off the power, and she ends up in the archery range. And it cuts away, but my strip Monopoly money's on her being dead, just like everybody from the Victorian era. Apparently Steve left at some point because he's at a diner in town. He pays for his food and then dons a rain suit fit for a professional whaler. Semper Paratus, I guess.
Yeah, but it's different.
He hops in the Jeep, but it stalls out after a while because of rain, I guess? The bane of Jeeps everywhere. Rain. But all good. Steve just hops in with a cop because these were different times, and as creepy as Steve looks, he's still very clearly white. The cop mentions that tonight is actually the double whammy. Friday the 13th and a full moon. The cop dumps Steve off on the side of the road close-ish to camp, and Steve walks to camp, but gets flash lit in the face and then stabbed. Meanwhile, Alice she's just over here freaking shredding. Then she heads to bed, but oops, there's a bloody axe in there. Yucky!
What is going on?
She and the only remaining dude break into the camp office to look for a phone because they're getting scared, but that's dead. So they try a payphone, but that's dead. So they try to start the car, but guess what? That shit's dead! Oh, by the way, the generator? Dead. So with all these problems they're facing, the dude chooses to go fix the generator by himself while Alice chooses to sleep, which is kind of like being dead. Eventually, Alice wakes up and makes herself a bit of midnight coffee for a very long time. And eventually, she tries to find the generator boy, who apparently is named Bill. And I only know that because she asks for Bill a lot. Where the hell's Bill?
I'm just a
Well, unfortunately, Bill can't respond because he's mounted on the generator door with a bunch of arrows inside of his body.
I'm just a Bill.
Alice runs back to the cabin and creates an elaborate system of ropes and pulleys to keep the door locked, and also a piece of wood, and a trunk, a chair, 2 chairs, 3 chairs? This is an impenetrable wall. Then she grabs and holds a bat in the least threatening possible way. But then a girl body's hucked through the window. Forgot about those. Her pyramid is completely bypassed, and Alice is not thrilled. All of a sudden, a different maybe Jeep shows up, driven by an old woman who identifies herself as Mrs. Voorhees.
An old friend of the Christies.
She says she used to work for the previous owners. And oh, by the way, did you know a boy named Jason drowned here once because 2 counselors were having sex instead of watching the tiny boy swim, which, we would all choose that. Mrs. Voorhees. That's not their fault. 10 times out of 10, you're picking the sex.
He wasn't a very good swimmer.
But Mrs. Voorhees is super pissed because, oops, she's that kid's mom.
Jason was my son.
And today is his birthday. It's not his birthday. He's dead. But today would have been his birthday. And she doesn't want the camp to reopen, and she's actually the one murdering everybody because women can be anything they want, even deranged murderers. It's just politics upon politics in this movie.
Vaporeon is literally built for human dick.
But anyway, like Alice's chair pyramid, it all comes crashing down when it turns out old ladies actually do kind of suck at being murderers, no matter what the feminists say.
You can be rough with one.
And Alice beats the crap out of Jason's mom. Twists abound. Alice runs outside and finds the backpacker girl dead in the Jeep. Dead Steve dramatically flops upside down from a tree. Hold on a second. This old woman is hanging full-grown men from trees and arrow-nailing teen boys to doors in the air? How strong is she exactly? How does she have this much stamina? Is she pounding prune juice flavored 5-hour energies and pudding cups between every kill? But then she says what I always used to say as a kid when my sister wouldn't let me use the TV.
Kill her, Mommy.
So now Alice grabs a gun, but unfortunately she can't get into the gun safe for ammo, so she pivots to just throwing spools of twine at Mrs. Voorhees. This is unsuccessful, so she gets bitch slapped a bunch. But like Alice, she's 60 at best. You're 20. Just shove her down and steal her life alert. Pluck out her hearing aids. Scatter her knitting instruments across the dirty floor to confuse her. Literally do anything except throw twine and you'll be fine. There we go. She smacks Voorhees in the vagina with a gun. That's what I'm talking about. Dave was telling me off camera how he just, anytime his grandma's mean, he just... Alice runs away and Voorhees is still trucking, so Alice hides in the pantry, which why? How long you planning to hide in there? There's nowhere to go, and Voorhees is in no rush. If the search takes too long, you know what she's gonna do? She's gonna get hungry. Where's she gonna look for food? In the friggin' pantry, Alice. Okay, look at that. Voorhees finds her. Although again, Voorhees rushes her with a machete, but Alice knocks her out with a pan and runs away again instead of just double tapping. Or at least, pound her in the gooch a couple more times so she stays down. Alice runs to the lake and sits down facing the water and, she's attacked again. Why face water? So many attacks. Why is this movie so violent? It quickly dissolves into the least sexy elemental female wrestling ever, complete with just these brutal slams of heads into soft sand.
I don't like sand.
But then Alice chops Voorhees' damned head clean off, so that should probably finally do it. And then Alice takes this moment of peace to hop in a canoe and travel to the middle of the lake to pass out, I guess. It eventually becomes morning and the cops show up and no! It's genuinely shocking if you didn't know that's how the movie ended, because everybody knows that, but still. I was surprised, except then Alice wakes up in the hospital and they're all like, nah, that didn't happen. And she's like, well, then that probably means that the creepy lake boy is still out there. And everybody just goes, I don't know.
We didn't find any boy.
That's probably, why we're gonna rename it someday to Lake Dead Boy Soup. Oh my God, you haven't been swimming in it, have you? And then they inject her in her butthole. Politics? How are you set up already? Fine. The second movie opens on Itsy Bitsy Spider, sung by a drunk child who keeps stepping in and out of a water puddle with just 1 foot. And the child, or at least the feet of the child, are being followed by some creepier feet that are at best 6 inches away from the kid. It's not so much following, it's almost stepping on. Pretty excited we're swapping out POV shots for foot shots, though. That's a bit more my speed.
Oh, Mom.
This is apparently all happening 2 months after the events of the first movie, and inside a nearby house, Alice uncomfortably dream recaps the entire plot of the first movie for literally 5 minutes of this 85-minute movie. Finally, she wakes up and her mom calls and she's like, "Leave me alone, Mom, I need to be alone." Except, of course, she isn't alone. And we follow her around the house in a lengthy wander shot that's pretty modest, but not like too modest, you know? And whatever, you know where this is going. There's a phone call with nobody on the other end, and she grabs a stabber thing and gets pussy jump scared before finding a severed head in the freezer and getting stabbed in the brain. Bye, Alice. Don't worry. Your murderer removed the boiling kettle from the burner, so the house is fine.
You can rest now.
Then, because this is a sequel, the new title card friggin' explodes. And we get another lengthy opening credit sequence over black, but this time, the white text shows up in random spots. It's like, where will the executive producer's name pop up next? This is the Amish Avatar. And then finally, over 13 minutes into the film, and 5 years after the events of the first film, we start this actual, the movie that we're watching, with a truck driven by some incredibly observant young people.
Hey, there's the gas station.
Also, Ralph still lives here and is still weird.
You're all doomed.
Unfortunately, their truck gets towed and they chase their truck all the way to some dweeb named Ted who apparently tricked them.
Trick is something a whore does for money.
Like he paid the tow truck guy to tow them? Well, that's fun.
Welcome to God's country.
They all hop in the truck and drive together somewhere, at least until they get stopped by a log in the road and the girl finds a Crystal Lake sign in the woods.
It's Camp Blood.
And there is much young people talking during these parts, but much like filming a tow truck gag, there's no point. It doesn't matter.
It's like the talent portion of a beauty contest.
A man named Paul rings a little bell and summons a whole harem of young people. As he explains, he's running a camp counselor training center, as in he's preemptively training camp counselors to later send to other camps. See, that's part of the difficulty in making these movies. They want to show a bunch of horny young people getting butchered at a summer camp, but they want to make it very clear that none of them are minors. Presumably, the next movie will be set during the Camp Counselor Summer Olympics.
Go for gold!
For example, here's a girl with her butthole practically hanging out of her shorts. It needs to be very clear that she is a summer camp counselor and not an attendee, or Dave here would go to jail.
Get thrown into a cage with a bunch of sweaty men.
As Paul explains why it's actually perfectly legal to film everybody here naked, a girl named Jenny drives up and it's like, "Sorry, I'm late." And Paul is like, "Let me pause everything to take you into a cabin alone by yourself and mildly berate you because you're my assistant. And I guess it's not like we're in a rush."
But what is this crap, Jenny?
She counters by saying her car doesn't work great. And then when Paul goes to fix it, it shits in his face. Later that night, they roast marshmallows and Paul again recaps the Friday the 13th war for everybody.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
And slightly expounds upon it by saying that Jason lives in the woods now and he's actually seeking revenge for the whole his mom getting decapitated thing because he apparently watched that. And I guess that means that he didn't die?
His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned.
So apparently a kid goes missing from a summer camp and is presumed dead by drowning, but he actually just buggered off to live in the woods to become a bodybuilder with a melted face?
Hello.
How did he survive? How did he get so big? What does he use for toilet paper? It's live squirrels, isn't it?
Blood was everywhere.
My anus is bleeding.
Anyway, then the weird dweeb dude pops out in a mask holding a spear to freak everybody out, and it's clear he actually does a lot of sit-ups. I mean, good for him. The will-be counselors head inside to do young people things like arm wrestling or dance with dogs or hook up, which is called Scooby-Doobing. I'm not going to tell you which of those is called Scooby-Doobing. Yoinks! Because before the internet, your entertainment options were pretty limited. Thankfully, we now have videos like this. You can spend your time.
Oh, Mom.
Jenny heads to her cabin to give the audience a bra shot, and we see a very Freddy-esque shadow. Is this foreshadowing for 8 movies from now? Oh my God.
We'll see, bitch.
Then Paul breaks in to fraternize with his definitely of consenting age staff.
How am I supposed to be fraternizing with the staff?
Turns out Ralph is creeping outside, and it's like, dude, I get that you're trying to help by warning people all the time, but maybe you should do something slightly more constructive, like bring a gun or an air horn, or it doesn't matter because you're dead. The next day, the girl from the original couple calls her boyfriend chicken shit and takes him to check out the abandoned Camp Crystal Lake location, even though it's technically off limits to them. They walk through the woods for pretty much forever, but I appreciate that even though they were about to go swimming with the rest of the staff, the dude is still just wearing his, like, newsy hat. Just in case there's an extra special newspaper report he needs to sell on a street corner somewhere. They're, of course, followed by some evil feats before they get curb stomped. They come across what appears to be a massacred muffin. Muffin is the name of the dog that somebody brought. And that dog looks massacred.
Looks like a dog.
Much like any muffin I give my 2-year-old daughter to massacre, like a dog.
It's too mangled to tell.
A cop shows up and is like, hey, you're not allowed to be here. So he takes them back to Paul and is like, hey, they're not allowed to have been there. But Paul doesn't appear to care at all. I mean, dude cares so little he won't even wear a Yankees hat that fits his huge ass head.
Oh, really?
And the cop is pretty annoyed that he won't punish his counselors, but it's like, you're a cop, dude. If they broke a law, you punish them. If not, who cares? Go home.
What kind of place is this?
The distraught, can't get no respect cop drives sadly back to his cop station when he sees an opportunity to maybe work off a little steam and shoot an unarmed suspect. The cop pathetically lurches after this character for approximately the entire rest of the second act. Eventually, he ends up at a shitty shack and goes inside to find, yep, it's shitty inside too. This is not some sexily renovated tiny house. That said, it's good to know Jason has a toilet. I just assumed that a deranged serial killer living in a murder shed would shit the woods at best. And realistically, he seems more like a floor shitter, like Dave. And to all you budding filmmakers, this is called humanizing the subject. Just how I'm always trying to humanize Dave. Although, well, he may shit on the floor yet, because the cop opens some door and we don't see what he sees, but he seems pretty horrified, which is only made worse when he's hammered in the head. Later that night, about half the kids head into town to get plastered, while the other half stay behind to plaster each other with sex juices.
Nothing spoils a party faster than a drunk in a wheelchair.
And one of the stay-behinds wanders off by herself and says what I always say when somebody asks what my 2-year-old daughter just massacred.
Muffin?
She also gets buck-ass nude because horror movie. Somebody steals her clothes, but it's okay. It's just one of the other dickhead counselors committing a light sex crime because 80s horror movie. He giggles and won't give her her shirt until... Oh, shit. He gets caught in a rope trap thing and hangs upside down. For a second, it looks like things might devolve into a Spider-Man porn parody, but no, the girl leaves to get a knife to cut him down. But she needn't have bothered because Jason beats her to it, to the cutting, not to the Spider-Man porn. And I know, Dave, we'll let you watch some later on your little phone. Elsewhere in town, Jenny speculates just how sad Jason might be after living in the woods alone for so long and watching his mom get her head cut off. And also, maybe drowning? Like, did he die? I don't know. That seems like it'd be damaging to his emotional well-being more than the other stuff. Paul and Ted dismiss her musings, but not before Jenny asks the one question that's been looming over the whole movie. Is Jason
A frightened whore?
Whoa, Jenny, that is not what I thought you were gonna say. Good grief, you can't just say shit like that. I don't care how dead or serial killery he is. Also, here's a weird little, presumably neurotypical dude. Back at the cabins, kids be getting horny and asking each other how they became paralyzed and whether the motorcycle accident affected their penis.
Is everything else okay?
Also, forget sexy saxophone, here's some sexy harmonica. One of the girls freshens up by changing her sweater for a different sweater and her granny panties for different granny panties that appear made out of casting couch fabric. And she also spritzes the puss, just in case her man's penis works and or can smell. Unfortunately, we'll never know which of the 5 senses are available to the boy's penis because he mistakes thunder for his freshly spritzed lover and gets macheted in the face and macking mead down the stairs. Upstairs, the other 2 lovers are forever entwined by a spear. Romantic. Miss Spritz comes back into the cabin but doesn't see her man, so she first checks upstairs. Now, I don't want to come across as insensitive here, but that's probably not the first place to look for him.
Mark, where are you?
This isn't a super, accessible cabin. And what do you know? All she finds is a serial killer wearing a pillowcase on his face with a proclivity to flip into doom mode and go full first-person shooter with a knife. Ginny and Paul finally return from their offensive musings at the bar to find nothing except a bloody bedsheet. But Paul assures Ginny it's
Nothing.
Phew! Thank God! Usually a blood-soaked mattress is a bad thing, but not tonight, I guess. In fact, Paul wakes up in a pool of blood every day. It's nothing to worry about. Everybody deals with something like that occasionally. Oh, but apparently Paul was wrong and gets attacked by Jason, while Ginny does absolutely nothing. Jason wins, so Ginny runs away and grabs a knife, but then Jason pitchforks through a door, so she runs to the car, which of course doesn't work. Fortunately, Jason is sort of a frightened No, I was not gonna say that. I was gonna say unwise gentleman. Good grief. And he only stabs his pitchfork through the passenger side of the roof, which is not at all where Ginny is because she's attempting to drive the car. So she knocks him off and runs into the woods to hide again. And man, I would not hide in a scenario like this. I would just take off running down the road until I passed out. This dude doesn't have a gun and he's not overly fast. Your best bet is to just friggin' run. You're young, you're hot, you'll be fine. Although yes, second best idea would be to kick him in the penis, which may or may not smell. Also, I wonder if I could turn the soundtrack right here into a fat beat. But no, again, why hide under a freaking bed? Especially if you're just gonna piss yourself? And yes, she's attacked again, but she grabs a Chekhov's chainsaw that I forgot to mention earlier because I don't know, we've got a lot to get to today. And the chainsaw doesn't appear to do any real damage, but then she gives him the chair! And this works, I guess. But per usual, Jenny doesn't double tap Jason to make sure. So she goes to relax in a stream for a sec before stumbling upon the murder shed that she mistakenly believes houses somebody that could help her. I mean, who looks at that thing and is like, oh boy, a happy house for happy, helpful people. I hope they happy help me.
Here we go, moment of truth.
But no, all she finds is an altar to Jason's dead mom featuring her actual dead head. And yeah, Jason himself. Thinking quickly, Jenny dons the dead mom's disgusting, probably off-the-rack sweater and pretends to be Jason's resurrected mom.
Don't let her live.
And this works until he sees his mom's head still on the table and he's like, hey, you're not my mother, and stabs her in the leg, as I also do with anybody who is not my mom. And I'm still not sorry about it, Dave. You are not my mom.
Did he have a mother?
Fortunately, Jason also sucks at double tapping, and Paul shows back up somehow to tussle until Jenny machetes Jason in the shoulder with the same janky-ass slow-mo as Alice whomping off Jason's mom's head. He flops over like he's dead, so Jenny unmasks him, and though we don't see the face, Paul says, Jesus. But I really doubt that. Jesus would never. Jenny's not feeling great, so Paul carries her to a cabin, but they pretty immediately hear a noise and assume Jason has followed them. They prepare to attack him, but it turns out it was just unmassacred Muffin. Nice. Oh, not nice. He breaks through the back window and grabs Jenny. And okay, I get the pillowcase now. Dude is looking rough. White cut from there to Jenny getting hucked in an ambulance and a brief shot of Jason's mom's head. No word yet on what happened to her or Paul or friggin' Ted the nerd, who we last saw asking the weird dude in the bar whether there were other bars in town, but thankfully, we've got 50 more movies to answer all these questions and probably other questions.
Sex. You guys are getting boring, you know that?
Well, now that we're at the third movie in this franchise, Paramount is finally willing to present the movie to us. Usually takes a couple. And then for the next 6 minutes of runtime, we watch the ending of the last movie, just straight up. Then we see a title card that comes out of some eyeballs and a much more colorful and elaborate long-ass opening title sequence, apparently to take advantage of this movie being in 3D, even though, you know, I can't see any of that.
Please help me!
And then finally, at 7 minutes and 40 seconds, we're treated to the first actual new live action footage. And what is that footage of? Why, a Crystal Lake convenience store. What follows is a fairly elaborate shot from above the store through some laundry. Feels like a waste, but not any more of a waste than the next 8 minutes of runtime where we follow some doofus named Harold and his mean-ass wife.
Damn it, Harold!
The wife watches TV and we learn the second movie happened literally yesterday. She heads out to do a bit of midnight laundry, as one does, while her husband eats everything in the store, from peanuts to orange juice to a donut to literal fish food. You will definitely get Lou Gehrig's disease from eating any food sold from this store.
Been given a bad break.
And because of his indiscriminate gluttony, Harold needs to literally take a shit, and we literally have to watch and listen to him do the shitting for three purposes, I assume. Harold thinks he hears something, so he stops shitting and neither flushes nor wipes before going to inspect, and therefore, you know, he deserves whatever happens to him next.
It's all that crap you've been stuffing yourself with.
This movie is good. What he finds is nothing until, oh, he gets meat cleavered. Then the wife goes to check on her husband and is knitting needles. And now that we're nearly 17 minutes into this film, we're finally introduced to the actual characters we'll be following. But not before this shot of a kid holding a baseball bat with impossibly bad form.
Been given a bad break.
The people we're actually supposed to know are three teens in a van who only care about one thing.
Sex, sex, sex.
Oh wait, actually there's a fourth teen who pretends to murder them because he's overweight and not conventionally attractive, which of course makes him a fighting. Whoa, Jenny! I thought we talked about this! You're not even in this movie! Go back to the second one. He has a name, and it's Shelly. He's just a little socially awkward, damn.
Sorry.
Now, I had to wiki this because the setup makes zero sense to me, but apparently these teens, as well as two other seemingly much older potheads in the back of the van, because this was apparently based on an unused live-action Scooby-Doo spec script, have stopped to pick up a blind date for Shelly, who is unfortunately plagued with
basic old-fashioned mother problems.
And they're all headed to the main girl named Chris's parents' old lake house at Camp Crystal Lake for the weekend. And how do all these random people know each other? And who goes on a blind date with a pack of random people to a lake house? I don't know. And I told you that getting a bunch of legal-aged horny teens to the lake is harder than you'd think. Believe me, I tried a lot of things. Fortunately, it was using Dave's phone. This is why you don't sip Mountain Dew. You get in the Mountain Dew stickies.
I know what you mean.
I also just read that Deb here is pregnant.
That's what happens when you're pregnant.
I assumed it was a joke because why would she be pregnant? It's a freaking weird detail to include and then never mention again. So just remember, Deb, during all of this, is pregnant.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Anyway, now they're all in the van and there's a brief bit where they smoke pot and talk about the pot and then eat the pot because they think cops are gonna get them all, but the cops don't. And it's all very boring.
Like what?
But then, thrillingly, they almost run over an old man in the road who they wake up only for him to warn them not to go to the lake, and also he's holding an eyeball.
I found this today.
I guess the producers regret killing old Ralph, but also why do they even need a crazy old man to warn them in the first place? We've seen the movies 3 times now. We know the lake is bad. It's called Camp Blood. It's a bad lake.
Go back from whence ye came.
But it's apparently worse than usual because what's that in the window? A dick-sucking dog trophy? Why is that dog so close to that man's crotch? Why is he leaning backwards? This is a bad omen. Ralph would not like this dick-sucking dog.
That's the one thing the neighbors here echo.
Dick-sucking dog. I ran into Anna's dad and he was like, you wanted me to set up a fire? And I'm like, yes, but I also don't want you around when I talk about dick-sucking dogs and such.
Stick around. You'll see.
Anyway, Chris heads to her cabin to be mildly sexually assaulted by what appears to be a 50-year-old man named Rick who cannot stop talking about how much sex he wants to have.
There's only so many cold showers I can take.
Chris tells him to
slow down, please.
And then requires 2 attempts to open a curtain. Now, shirtless Rick does some hey shit, and that seems to almost get Chris to change her mind, but then they hear a scream. They find the Shelley kid murdered in the head, but no, he's pulling yet another murder prank, which pisses everybody off.
I didn't mean to.
He manages to convince his blind date named Vera to take him into town so he can look at a porn magazine. Seems like he's a good dude.
Asshole.
But speaking of bad dudes, Shelley and Vera are accosted by a motorcycle gang.
Make a wish.
What is even happening? This movie is stupid.
That's real nice.
When they get back outside, Shelley pulls a classic accidentally back up into a motorcycle gang's motorcycle so they fall like dominoes gag. And when he tries to peel out of the parking lot, he's stopped by a gang member threatening him with like a chain. Just a chain, not a gun, a chain.
Hold on!
And when he whips the chain into the windows, Shelley drives away but turns around and runs over their motorcycles again. badass. Shelly's here to read porn and kick ass, and he's all out of porn. Hold on! Oh, shit, yo-yo in 3D. Or it would be if I had 3D glasses on or whatever. It's kind of boring to watch a yo-yo not in 3D, but I bet, like, if I did it and see the 3D, this would be awesome.
This is all the exercise I need.
So cool. They give Rick back his smashed up car and he says he wants to leave, but Chris convinces him to stay with a suggestion of sex.
Don't play fair, do you?
But why is he even there? I get that they used to date at some point, but why is he meeting her here? Where does he live? Where does she live? Does her family still own this property? Who cares? The biker gang followed them and steals gas from the van. And the one biker guy assures the lady biker that
Nobody's gonna get hurt.
because they're not that mean. And to further prove that deep down they're just a bunch of sweetie pies, the lady biker heads into the barn to literally just wander around and stare in awe like she's never even heard of a barn. Oh, and speaking of barns, the biker plan is to burn the damn thing to the ground. Burning down a barn in a forest during the height of summer? Well, nobody could possibly be hurt doing that, except Smokey the Bear. He's a cop, so ACAB.
The correct answer is you.
The gang dude, named Loco, you know, because the actor portraying him has the last name O'Brien, walks in the barn and pretty immediately says whatever I say when I see a fox.
Fox.
Fox also happens to be the name of the lady ganger who is now dead. Oh, and Loco gets almost nonchalantly pitchforked to death. As they say in Ireland, moi mala.
Oh, there goes that dream.
Then the other guy heads into the barn, but Loco falls on him and Jason beats the shit out of him before chopping the hell out of what appears to be the ground next to the gang guy. Can't blow that blood budget. There are a lot of people to kill. Use the fake gore sparingly. Rick and Chris hang out in the woods somewhere, having driven away from everybody else, and they discuss why Chris has been so on edge recently. So apparently 2 years ago, she and Rick had a hot date, but it was a little too hot, so she got in a fight with her parents and ended up running into the woods where she was attacked by a deformed man. She ended up blacking out and waking up in her bed with nobody else really remembering anything about this event. She hasn't been back to Crystal Lake since, and she's only back now to sort of confront her fears and hopefully put her mind at ease. What a fun backdrop for a vacation weekend or whatever this is.
I've been to Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and I can say without hyperbole that this is 1,000,000 times worse than all of them put together.
Again, how do these other people fit into all of this? And why was a blind date invited to confront past trauma of a stranger? I don't know. I'm a thirsty boy.
Unexpected.
But of course, Vera's not actually confronting past trauma at the moment. She's incurring present trauma by watching a juggling competition. That again is probably dope as in 3D, but is not so much, well, I guess it's still 3D, but it doesn't have any of that extra zhuzh that you would get in the theater. Deb takes her boy off to have some hammock sex, followed by a naked, but not like as naked as it could be, shower, leaving Shelly to openly stare at Vera's ass and call her a bitch when she doesn't want to have sex with him. So, yep. Okay, confirmed. Shelly is not some misunderstood, pure-hearted, if misguided outcast. He's an actual leering piece of shit who deserved to not get the girl. Yep. Great. Glad we can include a character like that. Sorry. Back to Chris and Rick real quick. They left the car lights on, so the battery died and they'll have to walk back on foot because they're dumb and we need a reason for the car to not work later. We're now treated to an unprecedented second scene. Wow, art, cinema, the theater. The movies. Here's hoping we see a turd slide out of a butthole in 3 dimensions. The movies. But unfortunately, no. The male pothead does slip his ass out of his pants and sit down, but we don't get any fart noises. Though he does get up without flushing or wiping when he thinks he hears a noise, so, you know. He's greeted outside by the female pothead, and the two of them think they see Shelly heading into the barn, so they go to scare him with an actual axe, which feels pretty hardcore, but this is the 80s, and bullies were mean.
What are you looking at, butthead?
Caleb is dead.
I'm gonna just put this out there, but all of the shots where the killer stands to the side of the frame watching is not nearly as cool as the POV shots from the first movie. This is of course exacerbated by them doing it 50 times throughout the film. It is not that tense. Sorry. Everything loses shock value after you do it over 50 times, except hiring actors to dress up as cops and tell Dave his entire family was eaten by bears.
It was a bear.
A bear?
It was
Hey!
It's weird how that's still fun 50 times later. He still keeps falling for it too.
That's inappropriate.
Anyway, Vera gets randomly foot grabbed by what appears to be Aquaman's sad, hockey-obsessed cousin, Warwolf. But it turns out to just be a regular old Shelly.
Why do you do these stupid things?
The two fight a bit and he leaves, and then Vera drops Shelly's wallet in the water, maybe on accident, maybe on revenge, and she goes to scoop the wallet out when she's harpooned by Jason in the eyeball in stunning 3D. Okay, back to mostly naked Deb. Her boyfriend, who goes everywhere walking on his hands because they spent years casting the perfect hand-walking actor, asks her if she wants a beer. She says yes. And then he gets split at the dick. Then Deb reads Fangoria magazine and realizes her boyfriend is all smooshed up on the ceiling and she is stabbed through the chest, which is why I only sleep in hammocks that are lined with Kevlar.
The results were surprising.
Downstairs, the potheads return from not finding Shelly, and the boy one makes popcorn like an idiot, while the girl one just friggin' dumps salt on there like God making the Dead Sea. A fuse blows, so the pot boy goes outside to get murdered. The pot girl opens the door to find throat slit Shelly, but assumes that he's pulling a fast one on her, again, like he's done 30 times, until she actually doesn't think he's pulling a fast one anymore. And it doesn't really matter either way because she gets face. Rick and Chris finally show up and they find nothing but burnt, salt-drowned popcorn. So to save time, they split up. Rick goes and gets his head popped off while Chris cleans the cabinet. Chris notices that the shower upstairs is overflowing, probably because of the dead body stuffed in the drain, and she runs outside and oh look! Loco is hanging in a tree like in the first movie, so she runs back inside where the body homages continue with the body through the window. Which, hey, how did Jason's mom throw a whole body through a window? That woman must have done mad Pilates.
I won't.
Jason finally attacks Chris directly, but she drops a bunch of books on him, which is probably a metaphor for something like maybe the American education system and how our kids are behind China. No Child Left Behind Act, Common Core, critical race theory? Maybe.
It's time to come.
And like with every teacher I've ever had, books aren't enough to slow Jason's murderous rampage, so Chris hides in a closet. She finds a knife conveniently hidden inside the recesses of Deb's dead back, so she stabs Jason in the hand. Then she wildly flails several more times before eventually embedding the thing in Jason's leg. She jumps out of a window, but Jason catches her, and then he doesn't. And then she slips away like that raccoon in Ace Ventura. And then she sneaks around to the side of the house to brain Jason with a log. And she is a scamp. She's just scampering.
And we won't give up.
She runs to the van, but because of the motorcycle gang, she runs out of gas, not that far down the road, and Jason reaches through the murder hole and grabs her. But she manages to roll the window up and trap his arms until he breaks the glass with his head. She runs, he chases, they're back at the barn. I start losing focus and wonder why Jason wears masks and pillowcases in the first place. Like, is he self-conscious about his appearance? Why? He's killing everybody who looks at him. He lives in the woods. I feel like the terror on their faces would be part of the appeal.
That's why you always leave a note.
I don't know. Chris hides successfully in the rafters for a few minutes before dropping down on Jason for no clear reason. And then she scrambles up the ladder and uses Chekhov's hay to cover the opening, which doesn't slow Jason down for even a millisecond. And Chris then beats him unconscious with a shovel, which does slow him down. And she ties a rope around his neck and throws him out the barn hole? What do you call that? Regardless, she is hardcore, man. I appreciate a final girl who can, get it. He isn't dead, of course, but inexplicably neither is the non-Fox, non-Loco gangster who attacks Jason. I guess Jason really was chopping the ground next to him. That's why did he do that?
Sorry.
But his luck runs out and Jason hacks his arm off. But that's just enough time for Chris to axe Jason in the head. And finally, he seems dead for real. For real dead. So Chris heads to the beach and hops in a canoe. She spends the night in there, and it seems like her dreams weren't super great. She sees Jason in the house, but then he's gone, and she gets surprise grabbed by Jason's creepy dead mom from the lake, but with none of the intensity or surprise of the first movie, despite two thrilling false scares from a log and a duck. Then we see some cops who say Chris is crazy, and she sure looks it. They put her in a cop car and drive away, and we see one last shot of a pretty dead-looking Jason in the barn with the axe in his head. Then a final lake shot. And...
news?
For the third straight movie, we are sumptuously treated to an extended recap of the series lore with recycled footage. This time, it's mostly filtered through the s'more scene in part 2. Now, I'm sure the people tricked into watching this movie in theaters aren't the brightest kids around, but the lore of this series isn't that tough to follow. The movies come out literally every single year. It's just the age-old story that if you ever have sex, you die.
How can I do more of that?
That's not just a great message, but a scientific fact.
We need people thinking that way.
I mean, I guess it could be an excuse to stretch the existing content that they've already done, which, as a content creator myself, is a pretty smart strategy. So, never mind. Friday the 13th producers, well done. Then finally, we arrive at the title card, which now includes the hockey mask because that's officially the thing now. Oh, and final chapter? Sweet! I thought there were a ton more of these. Good thing that movie titles are legally binding. Also, we're back to a white text over black credit sequence, but we've retained the random locations. Man, this was directed by Joseph Zito? Where are my zit heads at?
Food for any mood.
This movie begins with a helicopter presiding over the final aftermath of the last movie, except there are a lot of inconsistencies. Namely, it's still nighttime when they pull the axe out of Jason's head and cover his body in a sheet, as opposed to him still lying there the next morning in the previous movie. And side note, do they not have a bigger evidence baggie? Do they never have evidence larger than a bag of peanut M&Ms? How unfortunate.
Maybe he liked the sexy boots.
The paramedics throw Jason's body into the back of an ambulance and then everybody leaves, but it's still night. Where's Chris?
She must have flipped out.
Has the previous movie been slightly retconned to be later at night? I do not appreciate that. I'm here for strict canonical adherence, dang it.
That poor kid's been through hell.
I guess it could be argued that Chris also hallucinated the cops showing up and taking her away, but then where is she in this movie? Is she dead? Is she Jason? I don't know. But if she was, she'd be placed in the care of the most stereotypical movie mortician of all time. I mean, he's literally eating, sloppily dressed, unbelievably casual, and unsettlingly horny.
Real cute girl was. Still is.
4 for 4. Have you not noticed that this is true of basically every movie mortician? Well, then you need to watch more terrible, terrible movies, friend.
No, I don't think I will.
This terrible movie mortician is, of course, named Axel, and he has a love-hate relationship with this nurse.
Oh, I can fix that.
He also enjoys watching fairly tame exercise videos in lieu of actual pornography. He tries to hook up with the aforementioned nurse despite her devastating incoherent insult.
Axel, you are the Super Bowl of self-abuse.
But unfortunately, their plans to finger each other up against Jason's cold corpse are thwarted when Jason's arm flops out, causing Axel to say whatever I say when I look at my bank account.
Holy Jesus! Damn!
Hey, did you know that if you like these videos that are incredibly difficult to make, you can support me on Patreon to ensure they keep coming out and to get access to all sorts of bonus content and also the satisfaction of helping my family, including my 3 children, not starve to death? Why did I put that there? Of all places.
Because the last line was your bank account?
Holy Jesus! Damn!
Also thwarting Axel's horny desires, getting his head sewn off by the apparently not dead Jason. How is he alive? Is he alive or is he a zombie? Are these movies officially supernatural? These are the sort of questions that the movie producers did not ask.
No, I don't think I will.
Because they were too busy blowing cocaine into each other's buttholes. It's called playing the electric trombone, and literally everybody in Hollywood has done it at least at one time. Dave is a big electric trombone fan. Here we are in Hollywood.
That must be nuts.
Also, the nurse gets gutted. Cut from there to a mother/daughter jogging duo. Don't worry, the mom's not divorced, she's just separated. And her husband still asks about her from time to time.
How is he?
They end up back at their house on or around or near or whatever Crystal Lake, and they stumble upon an alien playing video games?
Mom, I got 98,000.
Oh, maybe it's Corey Feldman? Sorry, I'm being redundant.
Thanks.
Apparently, Corey makes his own horror mask because, well, hey, this is Gordon. The house next door has been rented by some kids. Here are those kids. 2 of the dudes in the back have an incredibly confusing conversation about how the one got broken up with and how the other one keeps saying that he's gonna ask his imaginary computer questions, and it ends with the one confessing, God, I'm horny. And if you told me that this scene was written by an imaginary computer, I wouldn't doubt you.
Yeah, well, there is no computer.
The kids pass Pamela Voorhees' gravestone that's inexplicably sitting on the side of the road. Do we know that Jason's mom is named Pamela yet? I don't know. Her name's Pam! Pam! They also pass a hitchhiker who literally only exists to get stabbed in the throat while eating a banana. If only all of us could have such clarity of purpose.
Oh, I see. Oh, don't hold it back from me, Doc. I can take it. Give it to me straight.
By nightfall, the kids finally arrive at the rented house, and they pretty immediately set to stripping in front of the window, much to Corey's confusing appreciation. Dude cannot handle his chubby, at least until his mom comes in and cock blinds him. The next day, the gang runs into identical sexy twins on bikes, and they all decide to go naked swimming together because the 80s were the best.
In the end, this may be the eventual blessing in disguise.
Well, except for the naked dudes. I didn't want... Also, this girl, Sarah's whole deal is that she doesn't want to get naked, which is totally fine, but I feel like putting on sunscreen while actively wearing a sweater is a bit much.
Oh.
And they yoink her in anyway. And Corey and his sister, named Trish, show up to this event too for some unclear reason, and this is what I was talking about. I don't feel great about having an underage kid ogling a bunch of naked people.
Tommy, turn around. Oh, come on, can I just turn around?
But then again, when their car breaks down later, Trish doesn't even get unbuckled, and she makes Corey fix the engine, so maybe he's actually 30?
I need a screwdriver.
But then again, he fails to actually fix the car, so a random backpacking boy appears out of nowhere and finishes the job by shoving his knife in the engine block or whatever. Maybe the secret political message of these movies is that you can solve a lot of your problems by putting a knife inside of there.
I'm just a happy camper.
Feminism. But why is he wandering around out here? Well, he claims to be hunting bear, and that's good enough for them. And they invite Rob into their house to look at all of Corey's freaky-ass masks and props.
Amazing.
By the time he leaves, it's night. So I guess Rob was there all freaking day. Must be a real charmer, that Rob.
What are you hunting for up here?
Subsection of bear. Still hairy, but where a bear generates his power through sheer mass alone, the otter generates his power through extraordinary quickness, cunning, and skill.
Eventually, the naked teens head back to their house to kind of just sit around and awkwardly dance and sort of jealously pass women back and forth and complain about their various levels of getting laidness.
Besides, you've got the hot one of the two.
And eventually, this bores the most off-naked girl named Sam, so she leaves the party to naked swim by herself. And she should really invest in some proper swimwear. I mean, she's gonna get hypothermia. It's cold out there. She's looking pokey.
Cold never bothered me.
She lies in a random inflatable raft just floating in the water, but she should also probably invest in a raft made of mithril or something because this one is super easy to stab through. Her boyfriend, Paul, who moments before had literally swapped Sam out for one of the twins, has a change of horny heart and swims after his actual girlfriend in his high-waisted short shorts. He does not like what he sees, though, so he swims back to shore and is immediately attacked in the penis to death. Bear boy Rob, who just so happens to be camping nearby, hears the penis commotion and grabs a machete to investigate. He finds nothing, but upon returning to his tent, he finds that his gun is broken. That's not good. By the way, who the heck are these random twins exactly? After Paul leaves to get his penis destroyed, one of them breaks a bed with the original loser from the intro. Do they have parents? Is an underreported feature of Crystal Lake that it's populated by tons of sexy bike twins? Has there been a centuries-long feud between the sexy bike twin families and the murderous Voorhees ancestors? I hope that a future film will explain this to me, although this is the final chapter, so might have to fan fiction that one. Anyway, the not sex-having bike twin leaves when one of the other loser dudes throws on some vintage porn to giggle at for most of the rest of the runtime. But she doesn't get far, though, because, well, that's 1 point for the Voorhees.
And in first place, with 472 points,
John C.
Interestingly, the vintage pornography does something for Sarah, so she propositions her boyfriend and heads upstairs to prepare the bunk bed that they're about to vigorously share. She throws on some lingerie, and man, this is easily the horniest entry of the series so far. They are pulling out all the dental dams for this one. Speaking of, once the one dude finishes finishing off the twin, he heads downstairs to get corkscrewed and killed. This does not affect the other guy's vintage porn experience, though. No, the only thing that messes that up is the video finally ending, and also him getting stabbed in the head. Oh, and yeah, the sexed up twin gets chucked out the window and onto a car, and somewhere along the way, she put on some skin-colored modesty leggings just in case she got thrown out of a window onto a car. Upstairs, Sarah and her boyfriend press some ass on glass until she gets out to dry her hair and give her boyfriend a little privacy to make a prison rape joke to himself.
Drop my bar of softballs, buddy.
and also to get murdered. Her hair dried, Sarah returns to find her boyfriend looking rough. She runs around screaming until she's axed through her door. Across the way, the wet mom returns from a run to a quiet house with no power. She wanders around for a bit outside before eventually making a face that I suppose means that she's getting murdered, but we don't actually see anything, so just imagine it. Then her kids show up to a similarly quiet and powerless and also now motherless house, and Trish heads outside to look for their mom and tells Corey to fix the power. And it continues to be weird that they treat this kid like an adult man.
Really great kid.
Maybe his kid face is another super realistic latex mask.
I just customized it.
Speaking of, Trish pretty much immediately just crawls into Bear Boy's tent and waits for him to come back. He's just surprised here as I am.
What the hell are you doing here?
And he quickly reveals that actually he's the brother of the uncomfortably young-looking woman Sandra from the second movie, and the bear that he's hunting is actually Jason.
Essentially a rag doll just being passed around from twink to twunk to bear to otter.
Back at the house, I guess Corey fixed the power, but I don't think we saw him do it. I can't remember. Then Trish and Bear Boy literally break into the house, despite Corey's right there. Just knock on the door. And though there is now power, thanks to old man weird-ass Corey, the phone is dead. So Trish leaves Corey alone again to take Bear Boy to see if the phone in the other house is working. They get to that house and don't immediately notice any bodies or gore in anything. And I honestly think that Jason's ability to quickly clean a house is too often overlooked. In another life, he'd have made an incredible crime scene cleaner or a really good maid of like a pretty good hotel probably, like a Marriott. The Marriott. Come murder someone in one of our rooms and let us take care of the mess. Anyway, the power dies again, of course, so Bear Boy heads to the basement, though I feel the priority remains to find the phone and get that to work. I mean, realistically, they should just hop in a car and drive away, but I suppose they're still holding out hope that they can find their mom. But she made a face. I don't think she's alive. Oh, and here's Gordon being a superhero. And finally, they find a body and freak out, and then they find Jason in the basement, and he kills Bear Boy. And then Trish runs upstairs, but then goes back downstairs for some reason. And yeah, she gets grabbed through the stairs, but manages to hack herself free. She runs back to Corey through a maze of elaborately staged corpses and starts nailing the door shut like their house doesn't have a million easily smashable windows. And look at that. Oh, and that. Classic Jason. Trish hammers Jason's head a bit and then runs to hide in Corey's room, which isn't particularly effective, but then she hits Jason with a TV, which works a little bit, until it doesn't, of course. So she and Corey run back to the other house, and then also Trish jumps out a window, and apparently she did not have time for modesty leggings. Let me tell you. Corey, thinking fast, gives himself a shitty haircut. Quick thinking, Corey. And Trish, who I guess is fine from the massive fall, goes hand to hand with Jason, and she gets a few good licks in, but then she doesn't. But right as all seems lost, Corey comes downstairs, and well, he kind of looks like a kid who drowned to death, I guess. Don't you remember? He apparently concocted this scheme by reading some newspaper clippings, and it does distract Jason long enough for Trish to whack Jason's mask right off his face. And somehow he looks way worse than he did last time we saw his mask off. But then again, he apparently died since last time, so I suppose it's understandable. But anyway, Corey finishes him off with the machete. And then he continues to finish him. Then he's just finishing and finishing and finishing. And Corey knows how to survive a horror movie. And or he's using all that pent-up energy from his peeping Tom scene at the beginning of the movie and is just working through some stuff. And then we wide out and see Trish in the hospital, and she gives her weird-ass brother a hug, and he gives the audience a weird look that we freeze frame on. And it almost feels like they're suggesting that he is the soul of Jason now, but it's not explicit. And hey, is it weird that this franchise gave up on the most interesting thing it had going for it after the first movie? Like, having the twist be that the killer is some random old woman is actually pretty cool.
Granny's our proponent nude.
Other horror franchises like Saw go to extreme lengths to try and replicate the same level of twist from the first movie.
Game over.
But no, Friday was like, that was a one-time thing. From now on, the only twist is that they get attacked at the very end, but it's a hallucination rather than, the interesting thing, which is constantly having the killer be somebody unexpected. It's always super clear who the problem is. It's me. It's just a weird pivot. It's like going from rifles to twine balls.
Hi, Violet.
Huh?
Hi! Immediately, Mr. Jason, we dive into the action with a lot of wetness and a big-ass yellow rain jacket. Curious George must be nearby.
Okay.
We got POV shots, we got foot shots, we got a tombstone for where Jason is ostensibly buried. We've also got the return of Corey Feldman. He watches some weirdos dig Jason up, and though it's clear they're very weirdly excited, it's honestly kind of hard to tell what Corey is thinking. His face is inscrutable. Mask-like. Eventually, the grave robbers open Jason's casket, and surprise, he kills them. Well, that explains the old saying, don't open old caskets if you like being alive. Never really got that until now. Okay, now Corey is very clearly worried. That's because he is an actor.
Acting.
Jason walks up and janky slow-mo slashes at Corey before definitely not Corey Feldman wakes up in a car. So I guess I have to call him by his character name now, which is Tommy. Who is supposed to be like 17, but is apparently played by 25-year-old John Shepard, proving that Corey's baby face was a super realistic latex mask all along. I am never doubting myself again. This big Tommy boy is in a mental institution van, and it's several years later as evidenced by Tommy's glow up. This despite Corey having glowed up to this. We're treated to some opening title sequence stuff that's basically identical to the last movie, but the title here is, which means this series won't end anytime soon, but it does mean I might jump into this lake and drown myself. That'll make for some great content. Somebody call up Logan Paul.
Suicide is badass.
No.
Anyway, the place Tommy is delivered is Pinehurst Youth Development Center, and we see all sorts of people like this beefcake riding Chekhov's bulldozer and one of the staffers named Pam.
Hi.
Initially, Tommy doesn't want to leave the van. Hey. But then he does. Pam takes Tommy to the main guy in charge named Matt,
Hi, Tommy.
who explains this is one of those honor system mental institutions where they have no guards or any sort of security.
Basically, you're your own boss.
But don't worry, Tommy brought a knife just in case.
It's an honor system, Tommy.
Also, as Matt explains, Tommy's brain is fried, so all of this to me screams safe, healing environment. Except, oh no! Tommy runs into a fake spider attached to an obnoxious child named
Reggie the Reckless,
who's like, haha, I'm not crazy. My grandpa just works here, and I like jump scaring all the mentally unstable and possibly violent inmates. It's something of a hobby of mine. And Tommy's like, well, two can play that game, you dumb
Jump, man.
Reggie seems upset by this though, and like, yeah, Reggie, these people aren't here because they know the appropriate amount to freak out obnoxious children.
You don't have to get all twisted out of shape about it.
Anyway, outside, the cops show up and are like, hey, we caught two of your wards banging in the neighbor's bushes. And Matt is like, classic, my mentally ill teens I'm in charge of. But then the aforementioned neighbors ride up on a motorcycle mad and
Crazy!
You tell him off!
And they threaten to murder the children, and the mom claims that she's wearing a bomb. And the cops are not worried about this.
Would you shut the f up?
Cut from there to the beefcake guy just hacking wood. You know, like beefcakes do. A fat kid with candy literally in every pocket walks over and is annoying to the beefcake.
Hi, Vic. Get lost.
And also two hot women.
Here, you want it?
Until the beefcake literally hacks him to death with an axe. Now, you might think that this would get the camp shut down forever, or maybe they'd hire some guards, but no. It's just one of those things that happens sometimes, I guess. What you gonna do?
I know, Matt.
The one thing you shouldn't do is be a pussy about it, according to this paramedic.
Bunch of pussies.
And now we get the first of several random vignette murder sequences inserted into the movie solely to pad the runtime and up the body count. They have no connection to the main plot or characters, making this movie something of a picaresque adventure. Google it, you friggin' nerds.
When Don Quixote had nothing to do, which was most of the time.
Gotta use that English major every once in a while for something other than killing spiders. Why did I put that there?
You kill spiders with books?
I don't know. Anyway, two obnoxious greaser dudes have their car stall out, so they argue and swear at each other until one gives up to go take a shit.
Crap my ass!
As Friday characters are so fond of doing at inopportune moments, but Jason shows up and shoves a road flare in the remaining dude's mouth, and then after the now happy post returns, he gets his throat slit. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little tired of looking at slit throats. Feels like we should come up with a different idea. Maybe slit their buttholes, their scrotums. I'm just spitballing here. Feel free to chip in, Dave. What do you want to see slit?
I like slits.
You don't like slits?
The cloaca.
Look, okay, whatever. Back to the story that I'm actually interested in, which is Tommy. All dripping, ripped as hell, popping pills. Now that's a plot. And now it's morning. And Reggie's grandpa is just so friggin' happy to be alive. By contrast, the residents are very pissed that one of the girls, Violet, accidentally put plates out for the dead fat kid and his murderer.
You don't set a place for a dead person.
But also, they're pretty flippant about the whole thing. They're just worried about adhering to cotillion standards, you know?
Pinky out.
And Tommy shows up and they're like, go get Eddie. But that'd actually make it so there aren't enough plates unless they don't get Gramps any food, which would be kind of mean, right? Whatever. Eddie shows up and he's a lot of fun. Tommy, not so much. We cut back to the disgusting, incesty couple. Who is this for? Is this funny?
Eat your fucking slop.
I don't know. But then a third filthy person shows up looking for work and the mom is like, okay, go do work and then I'll give you food. This is fun.
Okay.
Then we do actually get a vignette where one of the drivers of the mental van from the beginning does donuts in a parking lot before telling a waitress that he's here to pick her up so they can go party.
I'm going to party.
And she's so excited about this, she flashes herself in the mirror for no one.
It's showtime.
The driver then does a quick condom plop, snorts a bit of cocaine, and then gets axed in the head. You know, the typical things you do to get ready for a party. Then the waitress comes outside, gets in the car, tries to get at some floor cocaine, but then she is also axed. So now we've added drug use to the list of things that apparently gets you killed. You know, with slightly shittier video quality and maybe some devil horns on Jason, these films could easily be mistaken for Christian abstinence propaganda.
A God who would allow that is not worth believing in.
Also, quick question. Is there a reason Jason is killing all these people? Like, maybe he's trying to get revenge on Tommy, but if so, why kill random cokeheads at a gas station and greasers on the side of the road? Practice reps? I don't know. Who cares? The cop believes it's in fact Jason Voorhees, but this other cop or mayor or something is like,
his body was cremated. He's nothing but a handful of ash.
So... Back at Camper, whatever you call this place, two people as horny as they are mentally ill grab a blanket and run into the woods to have some just probably super crazy sex. But little do they know, they're being watched by that third dirty dude who's both licking his lips and is also stabbed to death. The guy leaves for some reason, so we get like 5 minutes of a fully naked woman just lying around for very artistic and necessary reasons until she's murdered with hedge clippers for similarly important and art reasons. Okay, it turns out that the guy had to leave so he could go throw rocks in a stream. That totally makes sense. It's all part of the foreplay. Leaving to go throw rocks in a stream serves the same purpose as thinking about baseball or Dave's grandma. Dave knows what I mean. He returns to find his would-be partner dead, and for his part, he's belted to a tree until he dies. That's the scene. You're welcome. Later that night, Reggie informs everybody that his brother is in town, and he wants Pam to take him into town to hang out with his brother.
Let's get this show on the roll.
And somebody suggests they also take the violent former killer Tommy with them so he can get some fresh air.
Yeah, great idea.
This is a very typical and normal conversation and thing that people would do. Classic, effortless setup for the next scene.
I just don't understand it.
And as it turns out, Reggie's brother is at a trailer park that is clearly a trailer park because the sign says trailer park. The brother is not in a trailer, however, he's in a van, cosplaying as Thriller-era Michael Jackson with his girlfriend.
Freaking A! Where'd you get that?
Pam joins Reggie to meet the brother, but Tommy doesn't. Why is he there? The gross son, or whatever he is, shows up on a motorcycle and is like, haha, I scared you, you big dummy. And Tommy's like, haha, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And what is going on? Why is he there? Why are they fighting? I don't know, but Pam stops Tommy from killing him and he runs into the woods while the gross dude drives home to drive his motorcycle maniacally and scream until he's mercifully... And then his disgusting mom is cleft in the head. We're just killing things. Things are dying. Friday, the 13th. We're filming this on a Friday, the 23rd. Is it the 23rd?
24th.
24th. Wow. Back at the trailer park, Reggie and Pam leave just moments before Reggie's brother ends the movie's not shitting scene streak.
Some damn enchiladas.
His girlfriend pranks him for a bit, and then they sing together for an uncomfortably long time.
Ooh, baby, ooh, baby.
Hey, baby.
And then she gets her throat slit, just like everybody else, and he forgets to wipe, just like everybody else.
Now you're gonna get it, bitch.
And then he gets stabbed through the outhouse wall. Great. After dropping Reggie off, Violet, a dude who stammers, and a girl I honestly don't remember seeing before this moment are like, hey, Matt and the horny kids and Reggie's grandpa are missing. And Pam is like, God, fine, I'll go look for them. But she only gets like a mile down the road before her truck dies. So she has to walk back, and things are happening, guys. Unfortunately, what she's walking back to is the stuttery guy hitting on the random girl and getting rejected and then getting cleaved. Because I guess there are only 2 or 3 ways that Jason can kill people now, and then this random girl gets topless for no reason to crawl into a top bunk with the dead stutter dude to get murdered herself. And then Victoria silently robot dances by herself in her room until, yeah, she gets stabbed in the gut. Things really do be happening. Oh, Reggie discovers this when he opens the door to Tommy's room to find all 3 bodies stacked right as Pam shows up to ask him what's the matter like 10 times.
What is it, Reggie? It's Pam. What's the matter? What's the matter? What is it? What is it?
Where are they? And then she walks in and finds out exactly what the matter is. And they all try and run away, but then Jason finally fully makes himself known and explodes through the front door. They run through the woods and stumble upon a medical station wagon. I'm not really sure what this vehicle is, but I think there's a dead paramedic in it. I don't know, but then Jason is there, so they run back into the woods and they find Matt nailed in the head. I don't even remember him leaving, and I guess Pam's not wearing a bra.
This is the one thing we did want to happen.
By the way, why is this movie so gratuitous? Not to contribute more to Twitter's favorite discourse about is there any point to sex scenes or whatever. It's icky, and I hate it. Sorry, Twitter. Do you also like how dead this grandpa is after he's thrown through a window? Is that what you want, you nasty tweeters? I'm sure that Twitter does love, though, Pam crawling around on the wet ground while Jason slowly walks up. And I know for sure that they love when Reggie runs Jason over with a killdozer as an excuse to cop a feel. Nice, Reggie.
I have to get all twisted out of shape about it.
Of course, Jason still isn't dead, so they run into a barn so Pam can fight him with a chainsaw. Yeah! It only works for a couple of seconds. But then Tommy shows up and heroically stands there literally unmoving for like 5 minutes until Jason walks up and slashes him. But then, twist, he stabs Jason, possibly in his penis, depending on the length of Jason's penis. We don't see the penis, but he stabs.
How long did you analyze this scene?
Well, it looks like it's gotta be...
Just say when. Just say, seriously? Are you serious?
Which is not crazy, but it's still pretty good.
A flaccid penis.
Well, I don't know if he's flaccid. He could be tucked in there. He's killing things. That's when Jason feels alive.
Tell that guy to behave.
Then, all 3 non-Jason characters climb up to the top of the barn, which is quite literally one of the worst places to hide. Jason is stabbed in the leg and or penis. Literally just run away. But no. Jason also crawls up the ladder to find a passed out Tommy, and Pam and Reggie work together to knock Jason out the barn hole. But it, of course, doesn't work until Tommy wakes up and chops off Jason's hand, causing him to complete his barn hole fall onto some conveniently placed spikes. And this reveals that Jason isn't actually Jason, but rather one of the paramedic guys who arrived when the chonky kid died. So, back to the original type of twist. I guess I spoke too soon. Is anything happening too soon in this series? No. And yeah, in the hospital, the cop is like, confirmed, it was that dude. And apparently the fat kid was his son. And seeing him dead must have made him snap.
Come on, Roy. Get your hands dirty.
And also, we found a bunch of Jason clippings, so this guy must have just decided to be a copycat, because that's how grief works, maybe. She's like, wow, that sucks, and goes in to check on Tommy, who seems fine, but then he stabs her. Just kidding. That was a nightmare. But oh no, there's Jason. Dave. But just kidding. Tommy wishes him away, but then holy crap, he has Jason's mask on his dresser. And when Pam actually comes in to check on him, he hides behind the door with a knife and he presumably stabs her. I at least appreciate that there's something of a twist this time out. Less excited about Jason becoming this Jigsaw type character embodied by 1,000 crazy copycats, but you know, I quite literally have no say in the matter. Because this is never gonna end, part 6 immediately opens with jump scare music and shots of dark, misty forebodingness. So far, so Friday.
Hell, I must be crazy.
There's also a speeding truck driven by an again recast Tommy and his friend, who apparently has recently been released from a mental institution, or maybe just a mental van, unclear.
If the institution ever found out about this.
They're headed to Jason's grave with the intention of destroying his corpse so that Jason goes to hell.
I'm gonna see he gets there.
I'm not sure if that's the main criteria for ending up in hell, but I'm more of a New Heavens, New Earth guy personally. Also, technically, Jason's already been cremated according to the last movie, but also no character actually saw it happen. So I guess, whatever. Also, side note, I thought the last we saw of Tommy, he was gonna become the new Jason, but I also thought that after the 4th movie, and I guess that stint in the mental institution really cleaned him up good. That's encouraging. It's great to see when the system works. Also, according to boring real life stuff, apparently the last movie sucked so much, the writers of this movie did actually want to make Tommy Jason, but they decided to bring back true Jason because that's the make or break it secret sauce that matters to fans of these movies. You know, because Jason's always been the killer since the first movie.
Killer mommy.
Anyway, they find Jason's tombstone, and I'm actually kind of curious what we do with real-life cremated serial killers.
I gotta be sure.
According to Google, they're treated pretty similarly to everyone else. So remember, kids, it's entirely possible that your grandparents are currently underground wrestling a convicted cannibal right now. I mean, unless their corpses have been destroyed and officially sent to hell, of course. But even then, that's probably where your grandparents went either way, so same problem.
I gotta be sure.
Anyway, Tommy digs old Jason up, and he opens the coffin to find a definitely dead dude in there.
Hello.
But Tommy's had a lot of hallucinations in the past, so just to be sure, he grabs a metal fence post or spike, and he stabs Jason a whole bunch with it. This is successful in the sense that Jason remains dead, but Tommy goes to grab a gas can to for real cremate sweet Jason, but unfortunately, he leaves the metal spike in Jason, and Odin blasts the thing with lightning, which, as we all know, brings people back to life. It's just science.
I'm skeptical.
Jason slowly lumbers toward Tommy and patiently waits for him to douse him in gas and attempt to light a match in the rain, but then the other guy hits Jason with a shovel, so Jason punches right through him, and he falls into the recently emptied out grave, thus restoring balance to the universe. Tommy then drives away, and we're treated to a brief James Bond homage in Jason's eyeball? Why? For who? I don't know, but apparently Jason, like my grandparents, lives. Suck it, kids without grandparents who are in hell. Jason grabs the mask that the now dead crazy dude had brought along for the car ride and arms himself with the fence post while Tommy runs into the sheriff's office and almost gets gunned down like, well, way too many people recently.
Don't shoot, please!
Thankfully he doesn't, but man, Tommy sure wants to get shot because he runs over and grabs a shotgun from the wall. But again, they merely huck his ass into a cell and say to him what I always say to my son whenever he's not taking a nap.
Take a nap, Junior.
Overall, this movie's dialogue is way more professional, intentional, and stylized than basically every other movie in this franchise.
Jesus, what the hell's going on with the weather? Sorry.
It's almost like somebody bothered to actually write a script and jokes and stuff. It's kind of refreshing. I mean, don't get me wrong, this isn't like a good movie, but it's actually watchable, which is saying something.
Look, there's no time for this bullshit.
Anyway, now we're watching more new young people in a car driving to
Camp Forest Green.
Apparently they've renamed it because presumably Camp Blood wasn't attracting many tweens. Unfortunately, there was a reason for that original name, and Jason appears in front of the car looking very Jason-like, and they try a few different things to get him to move out of the way, but ultimately, the boy grabs a gun and shoots Jason with it. This goes about as well as you'd expect. The girl takes a different approach though and flails in a puddle for a while before offering Jason like $40. This also goes about as well as you'd expect because he's worth more than that. Workers' rights, unionize. Jason should kill a Starbucks. But they're not the only young people Jason hopes to one day murder, and a bunch of other would-be murdered counselors show up to the police station to ask for help locating their murdered, missing friends. And Tommy from his cell's like, Jason did it! And the cop is like, shut up, Tommy! And also, no, we're not gonna look for your friends.
Another little kitty's arrived today. We're not ready to deal with that alone.
And the blonde girl's like, ooh, Tommy's cute. And also, my dad is the cop.
I told you to shut up.
Oh, and apparently today is Friday the 13th.
Yes. No.
They let Tommy go, but follow behind him to escort him out of town. Although, if they're actually worried that he's crazy or here to stir up trouble, could they not just take him back to the mental institution van? I mean, they know who he is and his history. Oh, and look at that. He whips into the cemetery to try and prove that Jason's been resurrected, and also to spark a very silly little chase. But as it turns out, the cemetery's alcoholic caretaker has covered over the grave because he doesn't want to get fired for letting Jason's body get stolen. He's already on thin ice from the whole Jesus thing.
I know I'm going to get blamed for this.
The caretaker also gives us a meta joke about horror movies directly to camera, breaking both the fourth wall and my immersion in this powerful film series.
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
How dare they? Also, apparently this is the only movie in the franchise without nudity? How dare they?
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
The cops catch up to Tommy and threaten to shoot him with the world's largest mail-order laser scope.
You bang.
And the caretaker asks the question I've often asked of my children when they won't take me seriously.
Does he think I'm a farthead?
But they let Tommy go again, but they're like, I'm super serious. If you come back, I'm gonna be so mad. And Tommy takes this warning to heart and goes to buy a bunch of books about the occult, because the most powerful weapon of all is knowledge.
Because knowledge is...
Next to metal, spike-wielding hockey zombies.
Hello.
The counselors are back at camp and a bus full of young children show up and... Okay, so that's why there's no nudity.
The little kitties.
It's too weird. Thank you for showing the bare minimum level of restraint, Friday the 13th producers. Nobody wants naked women paired with scenes of tween campers. Well, nobody except maybe...
How great is this?
But just because we're dealing with a more competent film doesn't mean we're not going to get a bunch of side story vignettes about other random people getting murdered by Jason to pad out the runtime. We got to get that runtime. For example, here are a bunch of business executive types playing team building paintball or whatever in the woods. Some of them take it seriously.
Victory is ours.
Some don't.
You're a real ass, you know that?
Some of them are women.
With a woman's touch.
Some aren't.
Why shouldn't he be allowed in these games?
All of humanity is represented here. And then all of humanity is killed by having their arms ripped off and their faces smashed into smiley blood faces. And then triple killed.
Triple kill.
Also, there's this guy who is very silly. Look at how silly he is. He shoots Jason with a paintball gun, but it doesn't slow the big guy down. There's definitely a metaphor for corporate American here, and I can almost taste it.
This is gonna be huge.
But also the scene is over, serving no purpose other than giving Jason his signature machete. Similarly, there's another vignette where two weirdos get engaged while having a midnight picnic. Is that lunch? I think technically it's called fourth meal.
He knows about them, doesn't he?
And while they celebrate their impending nuptials and their young bodies, the cemetery caretaker wanders by because, again, everybody's hanging out at midnight.
Oh, what the heck?
And he says what every Star Wars nerd said after watching Rise of Skywalker.
Kathleen, you led me astray.
He then does what every Star Trek nerd does and gets murdered with his own glass bottle. That's a commonly accepted stereotype. Google it.
No!
This is spotted by the boy fiance who runs back to the girl fiance. And are those things pronounced differently? I suck at cotillion.
When in doubt, pinky out.
Regardless, they find themselves both parted and joined together in death. Okay, back in camp, these kids may not be exposed to any full frontal nudity, but they are exposed to some questionable history lessons involving American Indians and rocks.
Let's just say you have a chief, right? And he dumps his squaw or his wife or whatever.
Later that night, some dumb kid claims
There's this monster, and he was after me.
And the one named Sissy says, like, nah, I'm wearing suspenders with sweatpants. We're gonna live forever.
Hello, darkness.
Then she reads a magazine that sure looks like a porno, but then Sissy thinks she hears something, and she does. Although she'll probably never hear anything ever again. Thankfully, her body is unburned, so she automatically goes to heaven. Is that how it works? Please, I'm just trying to understand because knowledge is power.
No!
Then Jason sneaks up on the remaining counselor girl, but oh no, it's just that nightmare-having child lugging around a bloody machete as kids do. She puts the girl back to bed and tells her that she should pray more because there is lots of theology in this film. The counselor heads back to her cabin before reciting the Ben Gesserit litany against fear, but she still gets freaked out by the door and then is very freaked out by Jason. To death, even.
Fear is the mind killer.
Elsewhere, we get a half vignette where one of the counselors has clothes-on sex with some random woman. I mean, I guess it's a sex scene, but it's also kind of a dance scene. And Jason is there, of course. And he kills the power to the camper, of course. So they drive away, of course, and the girl falls over a bunch because she refuses to just find a seat. And as punishment, Jason murders her in the camper bathroom by pin-arting her face through the wall. Rad. Then he stabs the dude that's driving in the head and the entire camper. Dark Nights.
Why do we force? So that we can...
Double rad. Watch out, Marie Curie. There's a lot of rads out here. Fallout. New Vegas.
I want to protest in the strongest possible terms. It is a distinct lack of respect.
One of the cops eventually finds the murdered couple from the beginning and a couple paintballer limbs, and Daddy Cop thinks Tommy did it to prove his story about Jason.
Happy Friday the 13th.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
And speaking of, Tommy calls the police station to say more things about Jason that I guess he learned from his occult books. But the blonde girl named Megan is the only one there, so she picks up and she says that she'll come pick him up since the cops are actively looking for him at this point. She does, and they pass the world's most inscrutable speeding sign that I guess is a joke, but I don't get it.
I have no idea.
They run into a police roadblock, and Megan shoves Tommy's head into her crotch so the cops don't see him.
Hello, darkness, smile.
But then she flees and pushes his head deeper into her nethers, but she's already fleeing the cops. Why does it matter if they actually see Tommy or not? Or from the other angle, what can Tommy's face and or tongue do against such stiff denim?
I know what I'm doing.
Regardless, they're stopped by her dad with a shotgun because I guess Megan is actually worried that he'll shoot her dead?
End of the line.
Just drive away. Call his bluff. Your dad's not going to shoot you to death, no matter what you've been doing with tongues and denim. You are definitely going to hell, Megan. They throw Tommy back in a cell again until they can prove that he is or isn't murdering everybody. But Tommy and Megan come up with a brilliant escape plan that mostly just involves trying to hook up through the bars until the cop breaks it up and they steal his gun.
You little turd!
And again, does he really believe that she's going to shoot him? What is wrong with this town where everybody actually believes their fellow neighbors and or daddies will murder them in cold blood? I don't know, but they head out to the car, and this time Tommy is like, I demand that I drive us to Crystal Lake because I'm a boy and boys drive. And Megan is like, okay, but I am not gonna put a seatbelt on. At said camp, the little girl sees Jason but prays away the frightened Damn it, Jenny! I thought we got rid of you. How are you doing this again? But yes, he is gone, I guess. Presumably, he was distracted by the cops showing up and discovering that the counselor's cabin had been absolutely flowing with spice and blood. The cops fan out so Jason can pick them off one at a time. And first, he kills one with like a dart, maybe. And then another cop gets his butt grabbed by a little girl, but then he gets his skull grabbed like really hard by Jason. And seeing that things aren't going super great, Sheriff Daddy gets all the young boy campers and puts them together with all the young girl campers for a usually against the rules bit of purpling.
I want you to all lie down on the floor.
He heads outside and promptly trips on one of the dead bros before popping back up and shooting Jason with a shotgun a whole bunch. It doesn't work great, so he runs away. But then he gets behind Jason and beats him up pretty good, well, until Jason folds him in half like a fourth meal crunchy taco. Order a Daddy Cop taco for your midnight engagement picnic today! Tommy and Megan show up, and Megan goes to hang with the kids while Tommy puts a bunch of chains in a canoe. Megan pretty immediately leaves the kids, though, to try and radio for help.
I think we're dead meat.
But she instead finds Sissy's popped off head and just abandons the whole plan.
Hello.
Like, as far as I can tell, she doesn't ever try to grab a radio. She just gives up. At least she tried. And okay, now Tommy's tying those chains to a big-ass rock, and was that in the occult book? I know he's been trying this entire movie to defeat Jason, and I'm just surprised that the book would recommend drowning undead creatures with chains and shit. I don't know. But Tommy starts motoring off in his little boat and he yells at Megan to go back to the kids, but when she does, he yells at her for going back to the kids.
Yes. No.
Tommy doesn't know what he wants. And then Jason attacks, but he lets Megan go because Tommy starts yelling at him. I think the script is starting to get a little sloppy here, kids. And speaking of, Jason gets sloppy wet, walking straight into the water after Tommy, who, by the way, is probably the first character to ever call Jason a frightened No, Jenny, that's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say
pussy.
In the American sense, meaning weak or cowardly.
You are ruining everything. We're gonna be so demonetized. Jason just drowns. So that's the end of the movie. Feels like Jason should have taken swimming lessons. Would have really ended this whole series before it began and or given him another tool in the old murder toolbox, but oh, never mind, he jump attacks? I guess he can swim some, and then Tommy and Jason scuffle in a literal ring of fire for a bit until Tommy finally gets the stupid chain fully around Jason's stupid neck and they both get dragged under. Tommy pretty much drowns, so Megan decides fine, she'll dive in and help. But she's grabbed by Jason, who apparently has gills, but also she manages to start the boat engine, which hacks Jason to extra death for, I guess, technically like the 4th time, not including when he drowned as a kid. And again, was this all in the book? Occult books are way more specific than I was reading them, trying to figure out how to get rid of all those stink bugs in my office. Anyway, Megan pulls Tommy out, gives him 3 quick pumps, and voila! He's alive again. Oh, and guess what, Jason? Well, he still lives. Water cannot kill him. Must be an electric or grass type. Twist!
Why don't we crawl in the sack?
Why don't you fix the fire?
There's no wood.
We're in a forest.
So apparently we're back to recapping the series so far, but this time it's done with the disembodied voice of some random old man narrator. Who is he? Why are we doing it this way?
People forget.
But once we've established where we've been, we finally get some new footage 5 minutes later. And even then, that footage is of Jason still tied to the rock in the bottom of the lake still.
He's down there.
We then see a little blonde girl named Tina listening to her parents fight. Also, it's Friday the 13th and this house is on Crystal Lake. Not sure if that's relevant.
People forget.
Her dad clearly hits her mom, so she hops on a boat and makes a break for the open sea. And her dad chases after her and is like, sorry, beating your mother with an accident, my bad.
Please, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
And she's like, no, I'm sad that she beat my mom. And she, as you might expect, uses telekinesis to blow up the dock and kill her dad with her mind. Side note, one of my daughters exploding me with her mind is legitimately my greatest fear as a parent. Anyway, Tina screams and wakes up much older and riding in a car with her mom. Evidently, she's been in a mental hospital van, but they're headed back to Crystal Lake to meet with a therapist named Dr. Cruz.
Hi.
In the hopes that he'll be able to make her less crazy. Of course, complicating matters are a bunch of sexy teens hanging out at the house next door, as sexy teens are wont to do.
Hi.
One of the sexiest teens, Nick, comes over to help Tina pick up her panties, which she has dropped down on the floor. Hey, what year is this supposed to be exactly? I mean, last movie saw Jason drowned at a kids camp, but then it became a vacation spot where a girl exploded her dad to death.
There goes the neighborhood.
And now it's maybe 10 years after that? According to the wiki, the last movie ended in July 1990, and then Tina killed her dad in October 1990, which is a pretty quick turnaround from camp where everybody got butchered to, ooh, fun vacation spot.
Please don't drink anymore.
Don't tell me what to do.
Also, apparently, this movie is set in June 1997, despite not a single character mentioning the impending release of Titanic. Unrealistic.
It's been 84 years.
Anyway, the doctor's plan, if you can call it that, is to film Tina doing telekinetic crap like moving matchbooks around with her mind, and she claims to not really know how to turn it on, but the doctor says it's pretty clearly
when your emotions are at their peak.
He proves this by yelling at her.
You're lying to me.
And being shitty.
The only reason that I'm here is to help you overcome the guilt that you have about your father's death.
Until the matchbook catches on fire.
Bullshit!
Wikipedia actually describes this pretty well. He begins with a series of experiments, parentheses, verbal assaults, designed to agitate Tina's mental state.
I rest my case.
Tina says to her mom, I miss Dad. And her mom is like,
I know, I miss him too.
I thought he was like literally physically abusive. I mean, I get that blowing your dad up with your brain is kind of sad, but he was also kind of crap. Yeah? Doesn't matter what I think though, because Tina is so sad and guilty about her dad that she apparently has a vision of her dad being in the water and uses her mind to lift him out, except, oh no, what she actually does is lift Jason out of the water.
Ready?
Which is pretty much the craziest way to solve how to bring him back into the series. Then she passes out. Is this what they mean by elevated horror? When the real problem is that your grief causes you to lift undead serial killers out of the bottom of lakes so that they can butcher more naked teens?
Obviously.
Watch your back, Ari Aster.
What?
When she wakes up, the doctor is like, I don't believe you that you pulled a random serial killer out of the lake with your mind. I only believe that you could pull other things out of the lake with your mind and that you're hallucinating the serial killer part. And actually, you're hallucinating your dad.
It wasn't a hallucination.
Yes, it was.
Classic therapist stuff. And speaking of classics, check out this broken down car. The Friday movies are set in a parallel universe where cars only work about 25% of the time.
Piece of shit.
The man wants to stop and camp and the girl's like, nah, we need to keep walking because there's a house full of sexy teens up ahead waiting to throw you a surprise birthday party. He's like, nice, I'm gonna go take a piss. And he walks really far into the woods because I guess he and this woman aren't particularly close. Like, how early is their relationship that he needs to go 100 yards away from her to drain the old lizard?
Be back in 2 shakes.
But obviously she gets stabbed and mounted and Piss Boy gets a spike chucked into his back. And that's why you always piss with a buddy, kids. Is Anna's dad here? I just feel weird.
Yeah, you probably should.
What the hell is even that?
Back at the house, Nick invites Tina to hang out and she heads over to the sexy teen house to find truly too many characters.
What is this?
It's all a bit much, and Tina gets so worked up that she has an unwanted vision of the guy in the woods being murdered.
Look, it's all over me.
So she runs away from the party. Oh, here's a little vignette for you. A random boy and girl camper sit next to a fire and the boy says he wants the sex. And the girl's like,
We need wood.
which sounds like they're on the same page, but apparently not. He goes into the woods to get some literal wood. She rejects him like he's some annoying creep hitting on her, but there's nobody else around.
Dan.
Are they just platonically camping? That sounds like the worst thing ever.
Why don't we crawl in the sack?
Why don't you fix the fire?
Anyway, it doesn't matter because while he's chopping wood with a machete, which makes no sense, he gets a hole punched through his body, which makes all the sense in the world. Jason then goes to kill the girl who's now all ready to have the sex with the first guy, which, I mean, she's really sending some mixed signals here.
Okay, you big hunk of a man, come and get me.
But Jason ain't got no time for signals, so he grabs the whole ass sleeping bag that she's in and slams it into a tree. And now that is what we've been waiting for. Something unique for once. I'm tired of people just getting stabbed and throat slit. Come up with something interesting. That's why Saw and the Final Destination series made so much more money. The whole premise is unique ways of killing people. Imagine if you watched 3 straight Final Destination movies where 20 different people were killed by falling logs. That's Friday the 13th. The next day, Nick and Tina chuck rocks in the lake and talk about Nick's shady past and the time Tina's dad was killed with brain powers. And again, this horror film is like my cholesterol. Slightly elevated. And also like Nick's peen, I guess, because they kiss while this other random blonde girl watches. And speaking of girls, look at these girls grilling while the boys are nowhere to be found. Progressive.
Bye.
And here's that random blonde girl again, but this time making fun of Tina so hard that her pearl necklace spills all over the place. Wow. Which is not a sex thing. Yet. Later that night, a couple characters go skinny dipping to make up for the lack of nudity in the last movie, though the boy never quite gets to the dipping part. The girl does, and we're treated to some underwater nudity because that's called art, and I'm sorry if this art makes you feel uncomfortable. All good art does that. And now she's dead. My muse! Oh! Oh, and by the way, this is what Squidward's wife probably says to him every night before she sucks his nose.
I love you, squid face.
Okay, now we finally get some insight into why Jason won't stop murdering everybody. See, Jason want to party, but Jason don't get to party. Open door, let Jason party. Or don't let Jason party and Jason tear you in half. Oh, back to the doctor real quick.
Hi.
He's been sort of gaslighting Tina and making her feel even crazier than she already is. And when the mom confronts him about this, he doesn't really deny it, but he also doesn't really explain why he's doing it, though he does threaten to recommit Tina to the mental institution. Again, no explanation as to why, other than movie psychiatrists do be like that sometimes.
You bastard.
But could it be because he found a dead body in the woods while wandering earlier? Maybe, but still, why? Is there money in setting matchbooks on fire and getting TVs thrown at your head? Unclear! Tina at one point finds clippings of old Crystal Lake stuff in his desk, but I'm still struggling to understand the good doctor's goal. I'm starting to doubt that he's a real doctor, unlike me, a real doctor with clear goals. Please consider subscribing to my channel and joining my Patreon for even more exclusive, not Jenna Ortega video content. Tina gets sad about all of it and steals the car. Unfortunately, she has a vision of Jason killing her mom, which causes her to crash her car like a Tesla grazed by a gust of wind. Tesla. She runs from the wreckage on foot and randomly runs into... What's he doing out here? I don't remember, but also her mom and the doctor find the crash car, and her mom also decides to run around in the woods. Tina! This is sort of a vignette, but there's a girl who looked kind of nerdy, but she wants to have sex with a pothead, so she glows herself up.
My ass.
And then goes to find that boy in the woods?
David, are you out there?
Why in the world would that be where she looks? Shockingly, she finds 0 sexy potheads, but she does find a dead body and runs into a friggin' shed where she's eventually murdered by Jason. And wouldn't you know it, all along, the pothead was having sex but with a different girl. In the house? What are the odds of that?
They must be high.
Also, every other character is hooking up too, in case you're wondering. It's hookup time o'clock, which in my house is, I don't know, like 8? One of the couples has sex in a van, and when it starts shaking, they think that the original murdered piss boy from the beginning has finally shown up for a surprise birthday party like 2 days later, and they go out to surprise for his birthday, but the surpriser becomes the surprisee when Jason surprise, and then party favors the other girl.
I've always made this as a party favor joke, and I've done it on stages.
One of the other couples, which includes the mean blonde girl, ends up not having sex, so the dude goes off to take a cold shower and have a
date with the soap on a rope.
Because prison rape. Or is that just masturbation in this context? Either way, what other funny things are you thinking, man? Okay, we should just, you just go die. Jason kills the power. And man, if he hadn't drowned, I bet Jason would have made a great electrician. Dude always finds the fuse box. He's got a real knack for it.
Fuse box.
Anyway, the pothead guy gets post-coital hunger pangs, so he wanders downstairs in the dark and gets boringly stabbed in his tummy. Where's a log truck when you need one?
Pop an ass open.
Also, I dig this music cue right here that plays as this girl with no clear defining traits other than, you know, she hooked up with a pothead and has the most nudity in the film, gets scared by a cat before getting yeeted out a window. Tina finally arrives back at the house with Nick and immediately sends Nick back into the woods to find her mom while she herself waits in said house in case her mom comes back. And to be fair,
I hate when people say to be fair.
Her mom and the doc are in the woods and they're running from Jason. And how does Jason keep pace exactly? I don't think I've ever seen this guy run, and yet he's never more than 5 steps behind anybody he's chasing. This is an important and good thought.
Please answer me!
Jason, of course, catches up, and the doctor holds Tina's mom still so that Jason can get a good stab in, but I'm pretty sure that it breaks the Hippocratic oath. That's bad. I'm a doctor. Don't do that. Apparently, Nick never actually went into the woods, and the mean blonde girl is in Tina's house for some literally never explained reason other than maybe she wants to hook up with Nick. So now Tina heads into the woods, and she finds the doctor, but he's pretty quickly attacked by Jason, who has somehow procured a weed whacker chainsaw thing out of nowhere. I guess he's got a whole portable shed and crafting table somewhere nearby.
Nice.
And despite the weed wacky invention, the actual kill is kind of underwhelming. Again, I want a log truck. I just want logs through heads, man. Give me it, Dave. Ugh. Tina eventually finds her dead mom and also pretty much dead everybody else. And by the time she re-encounters Jason, she's had it. So she starts telekinesing his butt all over the place. It doesn't work, of course. So she runs back to the horny house where he pretty immediately bursts through a window. She tries moving a table in front of a door to little effect. Then she throws a couch, which works okay. And then a head plant does some damage. Before ultimately collapsing the porch on Jason, which is classic Tina, always dropping overhangs on physically abusive men.
Yes, queen! Yes, queen!
Get you a Tina in your life.
Yes, queen!
She runs back to her house and is like, good news.
Jason's dead.
Her confidence is pretty incredible given that he wasn't killed by electrocution or, being chained to a rock at the bottom of the lake for a decade.
People forget.
But yeah, his weakness is definitely porches.
This is the Sally Special.
Oh no, she was wrong. And the blonde girl gets it. Nick tries to help. And then Tina knocks Jason through the stairs somehow with like a hanging light. Is that big enough to be a chandelier? What do we call that? Well, whatever it is, it's not strong enough to kill Jason, so he busts out from under the stairs like Harry Potter with diarrhea. And Tina tele-squishes his brain for a bit and hangs him from the ceiling before dropping him into a floor hole.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Jason still drags her right into his troll hole, but she shoots him with nails and then sprays him with gas that, probably like Tina herself, has an incredibly heavy flow. Tina lights the gas and runs out of the house just before literally the coolest thing that's ever happened in the series happens. Holy shit. Where's that been this whole time? Tina's like, well, I guess everything's gone and the horror has been elevated.
Let's get out of here.
But it's all good because she just resurrects her dead dad from the lake. And he throws a chain around Jason's neck and pulls him in. Okay, but how would you have written the ending to this movie if you're so smart?
Who better to lead us into the future?
Exactly. Dead dad from the lake? Genius. Friggin' Scorsese. Or no, who's a good screenwriter? Coen brothers.
May I say your father impressed me with his manly qualities.
Tina passes out and the authorities show up, and what the heck do they think happened here? It really feels like somebody should just drain Crystal Lake or drop a nuke on it. I mean, how many hundreds of people have been killed here in the past couple decades? Feels like it'd be better use of taxpayer money to just burn it all down. Just set the whole thing on fire, build a wall, start building friggin', what are the robots called in Pacific Rim?
Jaegers.
Let's just build big robots. I think big robots could solve any problem. Tell me you wouldn't watch Pacific Rim versus Jason. Jason eats some Mario mushroom and gets freaking huge and they're just slugging it out.
Then it all changed.
That's a lot better movie than Carrie versus Jason, which is what this was supposed to be, but they didn't get the rights. So now it's just a random magical girl for no apparent reason. Anyway, none of that happens or matters. We get one last shot of Nick and Tina riding next to each other in the ambulance station wagon thing that was apparently popular in the 80s. I don't know. That's it. I'm leaving the shower. Oh my sweet balls. Oh, nice. It was getting cold. The scaries begin right away with some whispering over the Paramount logo. We then get several shots of the Big Apple and everything is smoky. The streets, the boys, all smoke. There's a mugging and a diner with an extremely demanding pirate lady and a guy squirting way too much heroin out of a syringe before use. And I'll tell you what, this place looks like it could use a new leader. Maybe if Jason took Manhattan, he could clean the place up. Jason for mayor.
Vote for me, get a gun for free.
We underwater fast travel back to Crystal Lake to watch a couple of horny teens make out and moan on a boat.
Crystal Lake.
Oh no! The boy slides off the girl's underwear. Do you think they're gonna do it? I guess so, because the dude says he's gonna put down anchor. Nice. Oh, he means literally. But I suppose that'll allow him to literally rock the boat as hard as they want.
Major ass.
Unfortunately, said anchor bumps into a power line that Jason's corpse just so happens to be lying on top of, and through the magic of science, it brings it back to life again.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
And instead of grabbing a beef and cheddar or calling his headless mother, Jason spends the first few moments of his second or seventh or whatever we're at now chance at life clambering onto the boat and trying, and initially kind of failing, to harpoon the couple before eventually stabbing the dude and then stabbing the girl, but like extremely slowly. At one point, Jason, or maybe just the soundtrack, does the echo breath, but I think it literally is saying his name. In case 8 movies in, we forgot who we're dealing with here.
People forget.
That boat's cleared, so cut from there to a different boat called Lazarus, because the producers of this movie want you to Google that and learn about the Bible. That's what this entire series has been building to, a gospel presentation. Did it work, Dave? Well, if not, there's another hour and a half of this movie, beginning with a mom handing her daughter a pen that was apparently used by Stephen King. Oh, okay. So actually, this series has been building to a gospel presentation just to trick you into learning that hell is a place full of big-ass Lovecraftian ants. More people need to know about this book.
I've written some pretty awful things in my time.
But actually, this woman is not the girl's mom, but her teacher?
You are the best student.
That's odd. And the boat is a cruise to New York City, and the girl's actual legal guardian is in fact another teacher named Uncle Charles with a face that really only a legal guardian could love.
Oh, that's nice.
He tells the girl, Rennie, that she shouldn't get on the boat because she's scared, and she's like, no, I'd like to go on the cruise. See, look, here's a montage of games and fun. Uh-oh. Car. Did you see it? We're gonna film one more thing. Can you go inside? On board, this guy, I swear they say he's an admiral, but then they call captain for the rest of the movie, has a crappy son named Sean who sucks at boat stuff, just like my 3-month-old. We're the same.
I used that sex when I was your age.
And also, the boat Jason was on floats by, and Jason sneaks aboard, and a Ralph-type sailor claims,
"This voyage is doomed."
But notably, he doesn't get off the boat because he'd lose his job. That's capitalism.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Speaking of, Sean has bought Rennie a necklace because I guess they're dating, and that's what you do when you're dating under capitalism and or playing a JRPG.
Want to go on a date?
No.
How about now?
Hell yeah, I do!
Yes!
Less effective is her uncle's weird face grab tactic. He's like, you're scared of water. And she's like, okay, yes, but also I brought my dog, so I'll be fine. And speaking of fine, here she is, looking so fine that a weird panting child watches.
Mommy. Sorry, Mommy. Sorry.
And then there's a drowning kid in the window, and it's like, that's how you know you're good looking. When all the dead boys want to take you harder than Jason takes Manhattan. And she runs on deck and gets knocked into the water by a mean girl. And again, the boys all come out to the yard to drag her further into the water. Somebody's popular! Sean, yet another boy, dives in after her because the teacher is absolutely worthless and just watches the girl she knows can't swim flounder for 5 minutes without so much as calling for help.
She's fine.
She does, helpfully, offer to talk about Rennie's feelings when she's back on board.
Care to talk about it?
Rennie goes to towel off in the bathroom and is grabbed by another mirror baby. Gosh, give the girl a minute, boys.
Goodness.
Elsewhere, 2 weirdos film a music video of sorts, and the guitarist does a halfway decent impersonation of somebody who can actually play guitar. Especially considering the guitar is unplugged. But it's not good enough for Jason, and he beats her to death with the guitar. Except wait, where's the feedback noise come from? She's not plugged in. Did I just find a mistake in one of these movies? What's not a mistake is that the mean girl and her token friend start doing some cocaine. There's never a wrong time for a good time.
Nighttime is the right time.
Am I right? Even if you, like the other girl, have a stereotypical but non-specific
Science scholarship.
What is she gonna minor in? Shrimp fried rice? That's what Dave said that he thinks that she's gonna minor in, and I bet the producers agree.
Is that a good joke, or am I just perpetuating the racism I'm purporting to make fun of?
Oh, and Jason kills a dude in the sauna by entering him with a rock. How very sanctuary, Jordan said, making a joke that makes no sense and literally nobody on earth will get. Tell me in the comments if you can even remotely comprehend the connection I'm going for here. And then subscribe, I don't know. Back to Crackhead Girl. She's in trouble with Daddy Uncle Charles because she hasn't finished her biology project yet or whatever. And she's like, okay, but what if I strip to my underwear and make out with you? And he's like,
hey, stop that.
Eventually, Daddy comes up for air and is like, yeah, actually, that's a bad idea, but oops, looks like the weirdo with the camera filmed it. And he's like,
You can forget about attending any film school.
and marches away. But I would very much smash that weird kid into the wall and obliterate his camera. Daddy's entire career and like life is at stake. Smash that boy.
Hey.
Anyway, Crackhead goes to wash all the man filth off her, but she sees Jason in the hallway and considers this development for too long. He's here. He stabs her with a glass shard, which is a callback to cocaine.
That's a metaphor.
Then Jason washes that down by murdering the first mate or whatever and Captain Admiral Daddy. Sean and Rennie decide they've had enough, and they head to the helm. Dead Daddy's he's just clinging to them controls. Sean calls an emergency meeting right before expert electrician Jason kills the friggin' radio.
Hello?
A bunch of the characters get together and yell, and it very much upsets Uncle Daddy Charles.
Watch your mouth.
And then they send Rennie to drop anchors in the middle of a storm. Aren't they trying to turn the boat around? I'm not exactly a naval expert, but that seems dumb, right? You don't drop anchors, and you don't send Rennie to do it. And actually, Uncle Daddy agrees with me.
Do you think dropping an anchor in the middle of a storm makes any sense whatsoever?
I don't know how I
Feel about that.
I'm the one you should be listening to.
By the way, Science Girl sees Jason and runs into the dance room and spins in a confused circle for like a full minute while Jason just sort of teleports around the room, and it is a scene. Finally, Jason chokes her. First down, but then eventually up. She dies. And with her, the fried shrimp-based cure for cancer she probably would have developed.
Oh, there it is again.
Jason has taken so much.
That's a metaphor.
A few of the boys hunt Jason with weapons while the camera guy films a Doom prequel movie where he murders some random innocent dude because his glasses fell off. And I guess Camera Boy assumed it was a Martian demon from hell.
Game time.
He should probably get rid of that tape for sure. But oh, Jason does it for him. That's thoughtful. Except, then Jason throws him onto a dick burning machine, which is less thoughtful. Talk about a bad case of the sexually transmitted crotch crabs. High fives, Dave. Dave is just basically one big crotch crab at this point.
I feel young again.
But then, being thoughtful again, Jason turns on the fire alarm. And the teacher's like, that's probably the killer trying to cause a panic. And I mean, Charles sucks, but he is right about a lot of things. But ironically, there is also actually an actual fire. But double ironically, the boat is flooding. So those should cancel each other out. It'll be fine. Oh, this other kid named Julius whips his shotgun around like a trained cop before Jason hucks him in the water like a trained diver. During all of this, Rennie is apparently trapped in both her room and just this massive, unwieldy sports coat. Jason around and tries to headbutt his way in, but he finds out that the pin is mightier than the sword, or the head. She runs away. Uncle Daddy grabs a flare gun, but is immediately attacked by the weird ship hand guy who just sort of stabs him and runs away to get killed by Jason. Lightning strikes the mast, and they finally try the lifeboat thing. Jason just watches as they try their damnedest to simulate what they assume rowing looks like. Oh, hey, Julius. And now finally, after over an hour of runtime...
Damn, we're in New York!
But unfortunately, this is the 80s, so they're immediately mugged and Rennie's dragged off to get some free heroin.
Comprende?
Double unfortunately, Jason, I guess, just swam after them for a full night? When did he learn to swim like Michael Phelps on cocaine?
I've literally made a boatload of mistakes.
Isn't that literally Jason's whole thing? Sucking at swimming?
People forget.
Spider-Man meme. Fortunately, Jason hoists Rennie's primary attacker upon his own syringe and smacks the other one. Julius finds a payphone, but where have the times gone, baby? It's all wrong. Where are the plans we made for two? Yeah. Julius decides to box Jason because I guess the YouTube thing wasn't working out for him. I'd probably recommend running away and developing a more intentional thumbnail strategy and combining that with a focus on viewer retention, but he opts for body shots. Jason opts, though, for face shots. A little more effective. Uncle Daddy finds a cop, and Sean, Rennie, and the teacher also show up, but oops, Julia's head got in the cop car somehow. And Rennie commandeers the car, and she runs over Jason. However, if you remember, she's actively on heroin. So, bye, useless teacher. Should have spent more time teaching on why you should never heroin and drive. Rennie flashes back to the time her Uncle Daddy literally threw her in the lake as a swim lesson, and she got pulled down by yet another thirsty boy.
Sorry, Mommy? Sorry, Mommy?
And I guess that's why she's scared of water. She confronts her uncle because I guess she forgot this until this moment, but Jason kills the uncle. And that's how they do it in New York City, baby. Go Yankees, Manhattan, let's go. So it's fine. They don't have to deal with it. Then Sean and Rennie make out. Can she consent? She's on heroin. If that's okay, then that is quite the loophole. Dave, write that one down. But no, Jason is all about the law, so he blocks that criminal cock.
Cock puncher.
Now they're on the subway, which is fun, but Jason's there too, so they e-brake his ass and tackle him onto some electrified rails that don't affect Sean for some reason. Now they're at Times Square trying to make up for the fact that the vast majority of this movie did not happen anywhere near Manhattan, and Jason shows up and kicks a boombox and breaks into a diner and throws a guy into a mirror. And I guess that's really all it takes to take Manhattan. Really, anybody could do it.
Yo, man, it's cool.
This movie is long. And now they crawl down a warp pipe and run into a sanitation worker who's like, we're gonna release a bunch of toxic waste down here in a second. And then Jason kills him and knocks out Sean. So Rennie distracts Jason with a flashlight because I guess Jason's running on cat instincts at this point. And then she goops him in the face, which he does not love. Cats, they hate to be gooped on.
My pussy's gone crazy!
Then she grabs Sean and they try and climb a ladder out of the sewer while Jason gets just super gooped until he melts and dies and becomes a regular naked boy. That's it, that's the movie. All the dog live, goodbye!
Planning on smoking a little dope, having a little premarital sex, and getting slaughtered?
More like Jordan goes to hell, am I right? Anyway, here's a car driving to Crystal Lake. It's driven by a final girl-looking girl who opens the door to a cabin to find the light bulb is out. She grabs another from the shed, and Dave, let me tell you, that Mets fan really fixes that bulb. Then she heads upstairs, and oh, her fingernails are way too long to be a final girl. Yeah, she's gonna die. Power goes out, so she towels around and finds out before booking it into the woods. She stops, and Jason is there, but so are a bunch of spotlights and dudes with guns who just light that bad boy up. Then they blow that bad boy up with a literal airstrike. Jason's heart keeps beating, but then it doesn't. A cool-ass dude watches this scene unfold from a distance, but he seems to doubt it'll be successful.
I don't think so.
From there, a mortician wheels in a body bag containing Jason's various body parts. He spends the opening credits doing an autopsy, and okay, when did Jason's existence become so widely accepted and understood? Like, apparently these guys all work for the FBI, and they not only took out Jason, they knew the exact type of sexy naked lady to lure him into their explosive trap? Is this because of all the CCTV footage of his Manhattan attack or whatever? Even if that were the case, why would they assume he's still alive and able to return? There has been some kind of massive cultural shift in this world, and I'm kind of amazed that we don't get to see it.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go.
Whatever. The mortician finishes his autopsy, and we've already discussed the classic hungry mortician trope, and this guy is no different, other than the thing that he eats is Jason suddenly beating heart. But then another mortician with a more typical pizza comes in, and then the original mortician kills the crap out of him,
dead.
And I guess Jason's heart is like the ring of power, and also it's a way to transfer Jason's soul into people.
Lovely, big, golden...
Not any crazier than a girl with telekinetic powers or getting engaged on a picnic blanket in the middle of the woods at midnight during fourth meal. A new show called American Caseline informs us that the Jason Station killed the 2 guards outside the morgue.
Dead?
Sorry, they don't inform us, they show us, which is incredibly gruesome for a cable news show.
I will eat my neighbors.
Then the show's host explains the Jason saga thus far, and again, Jason's existence is apparently just a widely accepted fact now. How did that happen?
He has been responsible for 83 confirmed murders.
They also briefly interview a serial killer bounty hunter who says he's willing to kill Jason forever.
500 grand is my fee.
And the problem with Jason is that he's always hopping into new bodies, which is why it's so hard to kill him, which I believe has literally never been true or even hinted at until this exact moment.
Quite a character.
But whatever. He, the bounty hunter, is the only person that knows how to kill Jason permanently, and the host agrees to his terms on air. This is a real movie.
I am prepared to offer Creighton Duke his sum of just me.
The segment shocks a woman named Diana working at a Crystal Lake diner promoting a buy one get one free because Jason is finally dead burger sale.
Just me.
The bounty hunter is there and he orders both the Voorhees burger and
a side of Jason fingers.
But he also says he needs Diana's help for a reason that they understand, but the audience does not understand. And she says no, and he offers money. And then her sheriff boyfriend shows up and they fight a bit because the bounty hunter keeps talking about,
why don't you blow me, Chief?
And like, dude might be a pretty good bounty hunter, but he's a pretty terrible salesman. And the police haul him off to jail, which is weird because usually hats like his buff your charisma stats.
I have something else for you to look into.
Diana walks over to a random dude at the bar named Steve and is like,
Steven, I need to talk to you.
About some random person we've never seen or heard of named Jessica, so come over to my house tonight at 11. And he's like, okay, and now it's nighttime. And Steve picks up some horny hitchhiking teens, and he immediately wins them over after listing his 3 favorite things.
Smoking a little dope, having a little premarital sex, and getting slaughtered.
These are a few of my favorite things.
They look at him like he's being a butt, but he's like, I'm just kidding. And they're like, okay, good. Because yeah, we're gonna go hang out at Crystal Lake for the first time in forever without having to worry about being slaughtered. Because again, everybody believes in Jason now for some reason.
To be young again.
One of the girls tries to get Steve to make out with her, but he declines. So after a skinny dip, she has to sleep outside while the other 2 bang in the tent. Why did she agree to this trip? Why did they bring her along?
I don't know what you're missing.
But she gets up to pee and dies. And then the other girl gets up to pee, but doesn't die. Until 5 seconds later when, and the dude dies, presumably, even though he probably hasn't peed in like hours.
Forget about it.
Diana leaves the diner carrying a dog bowl in a cooking pan or whatever, and then she bumps into a different cop guy, and then she leaves.
Good night, Josh.
So that she can be picked up by some horny woman.
Get in!
But oops, she breaks her horny neck, and the cop wakes up, apparently about to have sex with the Jason Station. I mean, after he's shaved, of course. Apparently, he needs the extra skin space because when they're about to kiss, it appears that the mortician's tongue is a little floppy. The movie spares us the gorier details of their passionate lovemaking and cuts to Diana on the phone with, I guess, her daughter, who is apparently dating the American Caseline host, and oh, she has a baby.
I love you too.
That's a lot to process, but apparently the daughter is the aforementioned Jessica and the baby is hers with Steve from the diner. It is all connected, man. Diana is attacked by the cop who has apparently contracted congenital vorpes. Is that the right portmanteau? Jerpies? Bacterial Jasonosis? Gonorrhees? We'll workshop it. The point is that he is Jason now.
Oh, Jesus.
I guess. Diana shoots him in the head, but he doesn't die. And he wants to tongue her, but then Steve breaks in and tackles the cop, but the cop throws a knife into Diana's back. So then Steve stabs the cop with a poker and throws him out a window. But Diana dies right as her sheriff boyfriend or whatever shows up, and Steve has a little difficulty explaining what the heck happened here, especially since the other cop, I guess, got up and ran away.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
So now, Steve's in jail, looking like he pissed his pants with blood, which sounds quite Les Miserables.
They will wet themselves with blood.
Also, he's in a cell next to the bounty hunter.
Never know your luck when there's a free-for-all.
Helpfully, his new cell neighbor explains Jason can't keep body hopping forever because the bodies decay too much because of, I don't know, Jason is gross, I guess. And so what Jason needs to do is be reborn into, I guess, his regular body. But unfortunately, the only way to do that is through a Voorhees. And if you're thinking the Voorhees bloodline has run out, well, let me tell you something. It hasn't.
Oh, I know that.
Because Diana is technically Jason's half-sister, presumably through their dad, I guess, because Pamela was pretty adamant that she only had one kid, and thusly Jessica and Jessica's baby are both candidates for rebornness.
Why don't you just shut up?
Of course, by the same nonsense rules, they're also the only two people that can permanently kill Jason forever by destroying his heart. So somebody better get that baby a machete.
Mean little bastards.
The bounty hunter says all these things like they're some sort of prophecy, but how does he know this information?
Oh, I know.
Why does nobody else know this information? Why is it that the only way that he'll reveal this information to Steve is by breaking his fingers one by one? Literally, we will never know.
This was on the house.
But the bounty hunter tells Steve that he really needs to find some proof of all this stuff so that Jessica will believe them and help them perma-kill Jason.
We did it.
And Steve is like, well, all that sounds good to me. I already broke my fingers over it. Sunk cost fallacy. And he breaks out of jail by tricking a younger cop who is his buddy into coming a little too close. Jessica shows up at her mom's house, and one of Diana's friends from the diner is elbow deep in Diana's blood, trying to clean it off the carpet, and is like, well, this is awkward.
So sorry, I wanted to have this cleaned up before you got here.
And Jessica's like, nah, it's fine. Can you watch my baby for me? And the woman is like, of course. I'll take her to work with me. At the diner? That's not how watching a baby works.
Get it the out. This is a restaurant, not a nursery.
Oh, but actually, it's okay because she props the child up on a chest-high counter in an unsecured cardboard box in the back room. So I'm sure that the baby will be totally fine and won't immediately fall to her death in 2 or 3 minutes.
It wasn't just the baby that died that day.
I'm just messing around. Obviously, we don't need to worry about that because the suspected murderer was hiding in there and he just pops out and starts touching the baby.
I don't even know your name.
His name is John C.
At least until this overgrown child walks in and is like,
Take my car. Get out.
everybody thinks you're a killer, baby toucher. Steve drives to the old Voorhees house that I'm fairly certain we've never seen before, and he wanders around looking for some kind of proof, but he only manages to look at one weird book with a tree face full of hieroglyphs before the American Caseline Jessica boyfriend walks in and loudly states on the phone that he intends to shoot a segment for his show in the house and that he stole Diana's body from the morgue and stashed it in the closet here so that it can be discovered during the segment. I think this guy might be bad for Jessica and also maybe even the baby.
Shh. You'll wake her.
But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the Voorhees-infected cop thinks. And he attacks Case Files while Steve hides in the closet with Diana's body for company. Eventually, they make out. Ew, not Steve and Diana, that'd be disgusting. The cop and Case Files make out. And then the cop literally melts so hard that his jaw falls off his face. I don't even want to imagine what you were thinking. Case Files comes back to life and walks out of the house. Jessica, finally without her baby, cries in the shower for a bit until the power dies and she's forced to grab a hammer and get in the car. She's attacked by her Jason-powered boyfriend, but Steve cavemans her away on his shoulders, hops in a car, and then runs over Case Files a lot. They drive away and then they pull over and Steve calmly explains the situation to Jessica. She takes it pretty well, but then she also takes the car to the cops. Steve is immediately confronted by his friend cop, and they tussle for a minute before Steve realizes that Jessica is with the cops and that he needs to go there because that's probably where Jason is headed. He's not wrong. Steven jumps his cuffs, grabs his buddy's gun, and shoots Caseline a whole lot before he and Jessica run away to the diner.
Said Caseline? I think he might have done that one other time, so we'll say Case Files at the end.
Invincible power cop sting. Oh, never mind. During all the scuffling, the bounty hunter also makes his daring escape. Now at the oft-mentioned diner, the owner holds Jessica and Steve at gunpoint because, again, everybody thinks Steve sucks. Jessica is apparently insane too because she grabs for the gun, accidentally shooting out the power before bashing the owner with a thing of napkins or whatever. What makes it worse is the owner handed her overgrown child a gun and sent him into the parking lot, and he probably could have been a huge overgrown help inside. I mean, look at him go. Except also, oh, look at him go. Case Files busts into the diner and beats up a patron while the babysitter slash waitress grabs a shotgun and everybody's shooting and it's getting crazy in there. The owner's little husband, played by Leslie Jordan, rest in peace, gets dunked in the fryer, rest in peace, and Case Files elbows the owner's face inside her face. I don't know how else, her face goes into her face. That's how you would describe it. That's what Edgar Allan Poe would have said. Jessica runs to the back only to find her baby is missing. Case Files busts through the window and grabs Jessica, but the babysitter slash waitress shoots him in the leg and then impales him with rebar, which he then impales her with, but then he falls down. So everybody's like, phew, I guess he's dead, even though the whole reason they're there is because Steve doesn't believe that it's possible to kill Jason in that way. Whatever. Jessica steals the truck and drives to the Voorhees house to meet the bounty hunter alone.
You're alone.
The bounty hunter throws Jessica a knife and it transforms into a magical dagger. Because why not? More movie. I need more things to happen in the movie.
You don't need me for that.
Yes, I do.
And yeah, there we go. The bounty hunter falls through the floor for literally no reason.
Do you understand?
And impales his leg. That's what I'm talking about. I want things.
Do it!
Make things happen.
Do it!
Then the sheriff and the young cop show up, so I guess the sheriff didn't die, but they don't trust each other, and the bounty hunter tells Jessica to kill them both, just in case.
Do it!
She's hesitant, but then accidentally stabs the sheriff. But, oh crap, it's the young one who is bad, and he runs over to try and make out with the baby, but before he can really get in there, Steve shows up and meat mallets his neck. Man, where was Steve when Jared Fogle kept showing up in Sharknado?
You should really be eating fresh too, you know.
But wait, this movie isn't finished moving yet. So a slimy alien crawls out of the young cop's neck and jumps Steven, who throws it into the floor hole.
Gotta pay the troll toll.
That buys him a few moments to pull the bounty hunter out of the hole, but apparently that whole being reborn through a Voorhees thing does not have an only if they're alive clause. So the damned alien apparently crawls into Diana's decaying corpse, which was lying down there, and big old Jason pops out of the floor, hockey mask and all. He immediately bear hugs the bounty hunter to death because physical touch is extremely important for newborns. And then Steven tackles Jason out of a window, which is really just the biggest hug you can do. Skin-to-skin contact. That's how you bond. Steven and Jason each hit each other with many garden objects. At one point, Steven kicks Jason's undead but also newborn and probably therefore uncircumcised and therefore definitely evil penis. Eventually, Jessica finally gets bored and stabs Jason, causing magic things to fly out of him. Then they magic punch his face a little bit, and then demon hands drag Jason to hell, or an underground Arby's, or whatever.
Yeah, that ain't Arby's sauce, buddy.
Jessica and Steve make out, and then take a leisurely morning stroll, completely forgetting about the freaking baby! They left the baby at the house! What are they doing? You can't leave babies in abandoned evil houses! Oh my god, these are the worst parents ever. Did I forget to mention that Steve is Jessica's ex? I guess not. I don't know, there's been a lot going on, okay?
People forget.
Oh, and look, Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street's gloved hand pops out of the ground and grabs Jason's mask. So I guess that's gonna become a thing at some point. Bitch. But I'm not gonna talk about it because I'm just gonna go straight to hell.
While in hell, Jason finally made a friend. Unfortunately, that friend is also a serial killer named Freddy from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies that I may or may not have also watched all of in a legally distinct way.
Might have been a little naughty.
But, you know, to be fair, your options are a little bit limited.
And help. But I found someone.
And And Freddy apparently used some remaining power or whatever from whenever to resurrect Jason so that Jason could go to Freddy's hometown of Springfield and hopefully kill enough things and make people scared enough that Freddy could also return and kill things, because Freddy can only come back if he's remembered and feared.
Now that's a bitch.
And next, we see some titties. Then those titties swim. And then those titties run. And then those titties are stabbed. Rip titties.
I should have been watching them.
Then Jason's mom shows up and says, you know what your gift is?
You cannot die.
And Jason's probably like, yeah, I know, Mom. I'm very aware of my gift. Thanks. And then his mom was like, you should go to Elm Street and kill kids. And Jason, I guess, agrees because he comes back to life. But twist! Jason's mom was actually Freddy? Man, I don't remember any of this shit in the Bible. The Council of Nicaea left out all the good parts. We then see the Elm Street house, and I guess Chip and Joanna Gaines got their hands on it because it's looking pretty okay.
It smells highly suspicious.
Urinated.
Very urine-like.
And inside there are 3 teen girls named Lori, Kia, and Gib playing Marry, Kill with the 3 Stooges, because that's what kids do.
Marry, kill.
And one flicks a cigarette in Jason's dumb face. Then some surprise boys show up. Surprise. And the main boy named Trey takes Gib upstairs for some loveless sex.
Make me ask you twice.
While the other girls and a guy named Blake stay downstairs to quietly discuss key background exposition, like how the blonde girl's mom is dead and she used to be in love with a guy named Will that she hasn't seen in a while, and tug at their penis, respectively. Post-sex, Gib showers with her boobs out because it's important to remember that gratuitous white female nudity is the best way to fight back against the terrorists in a post-9/11 world. We totally won that war by not respecting anybody's privacy. Anyway, while Gib fights the good fight, Jason pounds Trey in the ass, which I also think is a 9/11 metaphor. Probably. Then Jason folds Trey up like a taco. I'm not sure what that has to do with 9/11, but if you know the answer, sound off in the comments so we can defeat terrorism together with our boobs all over the place. And everybody who isn't a taco runs out of the house and flags the cop. Other cops show up and they're like, it's Freddy. They take Lori back to the station where she immediately falls asleep because Elm Street kids fall asleep like I take shits, frequently without warning and with dire consequences. She sees a sad little girl with no eyeballs. Then she does what most of us do every day and wakes up. Then Blake's dad is like, what the hell were you even doing not watching your sister at home? And Blake is like, Daddy, chill. My friend died, Dad. We don't have time for this. So his dad walks away and Blake immediately passes out because kids these days with their Facebook and their PlayStation 3s, they're falling asleep.
Legs.
Legs.
Blake sees Freddy and he sort of ghost attacks him, but it doesn't work because he's still not strong enough, but it's all good because Jason's plenty strong and cuts off Blake's dad's head. And then slashes Blake himself all to shit. Jesus. Next, we've got the aforementioned Will, who is in some sort of psych ward, and he decides he wants to escape because he saw on TV somebody was killed in Lori's house, and a few years ago, Will saw Lori's dad kill Lori's mom, and he's worried the dad did it again. And Will's friend, named Mark, who does not play checkers.
I don't do checkers. I'm an Uno guy.
Helps Will escape with a little male nudity for once, for the ladies. And some fellas, we don't judge here, and neither do the producers of Freddy vs. Jason, the most progressive team in Hollywood. The next day, Lori's dad tries to slip some no-dream drugs in her juice, but she won't drink the juice. Drink the juice, Lori.
Drink your juice.
She ends up at school where some kids are handing out literal flyers for an underage party because that's the most effective way to get the word out about your underage secret party. And Will shows up with Mark, and Mark yells a bunch of shit at Lori about Freddy and how he operates.
Coffee.
And then Lori passes out in classic Elm Street fashion. Lori! Will and Mark drive to the library in Mark's dead brother's titty van and realize basically all evidence of Freddy Krueger has been wiped from the record. The entire town intentionally buried his existence because they understand Freddy has no power if nobody knows who he is. And then Mark realizes, oh shit, I've been literally telling everybody about Freddy. It's that bad? And I don't want to spoil anything, but it's bad. Will says, whatever, let's get out of here and grab Lori and, leave.
Like the plague, man.
Now they're all at a shitty cornfield rave. Some dweeb kid named Charlie is a total ass Kia and tells her she can't think good.
All that makeup weighing down your head.
But this is back in a time when writers believed that sort of thing would turn women on, so then the two dance.
Yeah, love!
Gib wanders off and sees Trey in the corn and chases him.
Same old Gib!
Naturally, she ends up in a silo with faces coming out of the metal and because Freddy is there, naturally, and she has in fact passed out. A fact not lost on this shitty glow-sticked asshole tries to sexually assault Gib amidst the corn. Before Freddy can kill her or the glow stick guy can pull a sanctuary, but with a glow stick instead of a corn cob, which is a hint to my earlier reference for those still trying to puzzle out that one, Jason stabs them both, which upsets Freddy greatly. Then Jason just starts massacring teens.
And you weren't
even after being set on fire. The main characters barely escape in the titty van. Will takes a few of the characters home, but he warns Lori that her dad is the one that got him committed, and maybe he murdered her mom, or whatever.
There's more to it than that.
She escapes her dad and house, and her and Will, who I just realized looks suspiciously like a pre-retirement Tom Brady.
I tried to tell you this earlier.
Go to grab Mark, who is at his parents' house, I guess? Are they not surprised to see him, considering as far as they know he was in a mental institution yesterday? Are his parents not good parents? Mark is about to fall asleep, so he tries to take some meth pills, but drops them. And is immediately haunted by his dead scut of a brother.
Oh, that's right!
Apparently, Ralphie came back to finish the job, though, because Scott's positively swimming in nose blood.
Listen, jerk. When I tell you to come, you better come.
But now he just won't stop!
Will and Lori show up just in time for Freddy to set Mark on fire and burn Freddy's back into Mark's back, even though that doesn't really mean anything to these kids, since they're just learning about Freddy for the first time. But I guess really any message burned onto a back is pretty scary. It could have been the Arby's secret menu branded onto his skin, and I would still be fairly unsettled.
We developed a burger that you can fuck and eat.
Whatever. The cops say they're gonna, set up some roadblocks so nobody can leave the town and they can contain Freddy because they've had 4 years of peace and they're gonna get it back. But that means this is 4 years after the 6th Elm Street movie, which I guess makes sense because that movie took place in 1999 and this movie was released in 2003. But every single child in the town in that movie was dead and every single adult was insane. So you're saying that in 4 years, every adult became mentally stable again and birthed enough children to repopulate the town with a bunch of teenagers? That math doesn't make sense unless they stole a bunch of children from neighboring towns or forced a bunch of complete families to move to Springfield. No matter how you look at it, it's an impressive bit of local cooperation and grassroots organization to steal children.
I think that that's something that we have to model more in politics.
Anyway, the cop from the beginning shows up in the kid's basement and is like, hey, I want to help. And whereas all the other cops think they're solely being attacked by Freddy, this dude thinks the main killer is actually John Cena. Then these apparently brilliant kids piece together that Freddy, a serial killer whose existence is wiped from all official records and who kills people in their dreams, must have used some of his power to resurrect Jason
from hell
to scare people enough to allow Freddy to grow strong enough to come back himself. And that is exactly correct. Good job, kids.
Give Daddy a kiss.
Then Lori falls asleep, so everybody starts kissing her and licking her and stuff. As the first one to fall asleep at a sleepover always gets licked. Everybody knows that. That's classic teens.
Lori! You fell asleep!
When she wakes up, she's pulled off Freddy's ear, leading them to the realization for the 100th time in that series that I may or may not have talked about, that they can pull things out of dreams.
I pulled that out of my dream.
We all know who the real virgin is here.
Kia!
So they concoct a plan to pull Freddy out of the dream world and force him and Jason to fight, which is as good as any plan, I guess. But to do that, they need to combat the fact that they fall asleep every 10 seconds. So they head to the psych ward to grab some more no-dream drugs called Hypnosil, which is apparently not FDA approved, even though it's been around for a minimum 20 years at this point. I don't think it's getting approved, guys.
You can trust the FDA is looking out for you.
And anyway, apparently this is the most high-tech asylum in the world with its own NASA control center. And they find a bunch of Minority Report precogs, presumably attempting to see the future of this franchise's box office earning potential. And the kids all scrounge around for Hypnosil, but then the pothead gets high and sees a truly looking CG hookah-smoking centipede thing, which he follows and then is attacked by causing him to pour the Hypnosil down the drain.
Damn, it's gotta be here somewhere.
Then Jason shows up and kills the cop in a shocking way.
Like shock humor or with light?
Yeah, with shock humor. He really just goes full Howard Stern on him.
Everyone was saying, you're going to go on Howard Stern, and are you sure? And I was like, I
I'm such a big fan.
I feel like you didn't wear a bra just for me today.
And he's like, ooh, you're not allowed to say that. He's like, who's going to get me, the PC police? And then he dies. He gets canceled to death.
I feel like you're not wearing panties today. I get that vibe. Am I right?
I am wearing panties.
You are?
Actually, yeah.
And let's see what kind of panties.
The Freddy pothead injects Jason with some tranquilizers, knocking him out. And also, the pothead is cut in half. Then Jason fights Freddy in his dream. And the kids tie Jason up and drive to Crystal Lake so that when they pull Freddy out of the dream, the two of them can fight on Jason's home turf. Because even though Jason has murdered 20 kids in this movie, they're still more afraid of Freddy, which kind of makes sense. In the dream, Freddy mostly kicks Jason's ass with apparently force powers. Once they get close enough, they give Lori tranquilizers so that she'll fall asleep and be able to grab Freddy and pull him out. But like, how are they gonna wake her up? They gave her tranquilizers.
Just give me 15 minutes and wake me up.
Simultaneously, Freddy stabs Jason's brain to access his memories of when he died, I guess. And Freddy tries to drown the freaky 11-year-old Jason. Like Dave traveling back in time to kill baby Hitler.
AKA Kung Fu.
Then Jason apparently wakes up because the van crashes. The kids run away, but twist! Lori isn't waking up yet because, you know, she was on tranquilizers and she's also being chased by Freddy.
Wake me up!
Jason finds them and starts trying to kill everything despite the dweeb kid's best efforts to go full Patriot Mel Gibson on his ass. And then Lori gets burned and wakes up and pulls in Freddy, and the music gets real butt metal as the promise of the movie title finally comes to fruition. But only for a moment, as they soon realize both their moms were named Pamela, which causes them to lay down their arms and bond. Just kidding. They kill the dork, and Freddy inexplicably reveals that he's racist.
How sweet, dark meat.
But it's okay because Kia is homophobic.
What kind of it runs around in a Christmas sweater?
While your right hand is doing this, your left hand can be doing this.
And also dead. Jason and Freddy get to fighting again, and realistically, how much force can Freddy really get behind his strikes? I mean, I get that he can do a lot of damage with a stab, but even with knives in the palm of your hand, it's tough to do that much slash damage because you just can't get a lot of torque. Definitely not as much torque as a machete.
Even at this size.
Like, try and stick some popsicle sticks on the end of your fingers and slap people with them. It's not gonna do much. And presumably, they're not hulking undead serial killers from hell, so I think that was a good point.
If your left hand sees how much fun your right hand is having, it won't want to be left out.
But whatever. They're fighting and shooting torpedoes at each other, I guess, and it looks like Freddy's gonna die, but then actually, it looks like he kills Jason, but then Jason rips him apart, so I guess Freddy dies, but then the dock explodes, so I guess they both die, but then twist, Freddy is alive, so I guess he won, but then oops, Jason's alive and stabs him and falls back in the water, so maybe Jason is dead now, and then Lori kills Freddy again, and then Jason dies? Again, I'm losing track. Oh, okay, so Jason isn't dead, but he's carrying Freddy's severed head, so, oh no, he's alive too. So I guess they're both still alive, and I guess in the end, nothing at all happened. Ain't that just this series?
It's too late. I've already found your spaceship. Is this the dryer, dude?
I see that my clothes fit, okay?
Oh, these are yours. They're great. Thank you.
All right, so I think we're in hell, but we also might be inside of an eyeball, I guess? Regardless, we're trapped in some sort of endless early 2000s CG abomination hellscape while science shit happens. Eventually, this mercifully ends, and we're told that we're in the Crystal Lake Research Facility looking at a chained up Jason Voorhees. Guess he got caught at some point while carrying Freddy's head around and is now awaiting cryogenic suspension, obviously. But hold on. This serious-looking mean guy wants to instead transport Jason to some other research facility so they can better study his regenerative powers.
I'm moving him to our Scranton facility.
So don't freeze him. They need him soft.
I want him soft, soft, soft.
That seems like it might create a problem, but actually Jason has already escaped, so I guess it doesn't matter either way, and he kills all the soldiers. And then he impales the mean man. The scientist lady, who was more in favor of freezing Jason and keeping him real hard.
Yeah, well.
And also trapping him in a hole forever until they develop the technology to kill him or whatever, hears the commotion and immediately starts asking the important questions.
What happened?
What do you think happened, lady? Literally, what are the options? You think a cocaine bear got in there? He died in the 80s, just like Jason. Oh my God, Jason is a cocaine bear.
This often leads to a lot of self-hatred and denial, especially among the religious or political types.
She grabs a shotgun and tricks/shoots Jason into a cryo chamber, and he still manages to stab her, so she doesn't necessarily have the necessary oomph to escape before she gets frozen alongside the big guy. Fast forward literally 455 years. The place is now real overgrown and apparently being visited by tall Jawas. And I know for a fact that Dan from the Discord is gonna say Tall Jawas is the name of his new band, but it's not. That's a lie. Dan is not naming his new band that. Hey, did you know that we have a Discord for patrons like you? It's very fun. They find the chamber and open the thing up, and they're intrigued by the frozen dead.
He's a yesterday.
And they drop a little knowledge that hockey will apparently be outlawed in 2024.
What's a hockey mask? Facial armor.
Better slap the old biscuit around while you still can.
Biscuits, top titties, Bardowskis.
This goober knocks Jason over, but it's fine. It's the future. He'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
They grab the bodies and take them back to their spaceship or whatever because Earth is a chaotic desert wasteland now. And that better not be a political statement about climate change, I swear to God.
You'll be fine.
And the ship's pilot freaking loves his job. May we all love our jobs as much as this pilot. Their little ship docks with a larger ship that, much like a funeral for victims of a Hooters fire, is just fit to busting with sexy ladies.
In what condition?
Perfect. It's also busting with science words.
Glycerol levels, cerebral perfusion.
Hydrous methamine. Biscuits, top titties, Bardowskis.
The whole works.
So much science word. Forgot the S.
Decrystallization of the membranes is now at 32%.
Good.
3 simultaneous operations happen. The first is to reattach that one dude's arm with science. The other is to bring back the dead chick from the beginning of the movie with science, and also with ants maybe. And finally, they're just sort of chopping little pieces off Jason, who I didn't realize was an ally. Good for him. They succeed with the arm and also bringing back the lady who looks very healthy.
Yeah. That's a healthy lady. If that Strusie's not all up on after that, you gotta drop her like a trig class, see?
So this guy, who's apparently a professor in charge of the movie's youngest and sexiest characters,
Their second year, they're gonna slow me down.
just Zoom calls some random guy with a lisp who's like, nobody's gonna care that you brought that hot girl back to life, but they might pay you money to bring back Jason Voorhees because apparently he's still well known 455 years later.
Maybe.
Earth ended, but not our love for the Friday the 13th film series. That's the one thing that'll survive all apocalypses.
250, 450. What's the difference?
And the professor is like, sick, I love money.
I know.
To celebrate, I'm gonna get my nipples clamped by one of my students. Which is actually kind of a dick move because the team's android doesn't even have nipples. It seems like he's just really rubbing his clamped nipples right in her nippleless face. Ugh. People.
Janessa has them.
Meanwhile, Jason's goop is getting all over the floor because he's quite thawed at this point, and he reanimates and attacks the improperly clothed scientist dude by freezing her face and then shattering it on the sink. Which, hell yeah, that's all I've ever wanted from this series. Something new, something blue. Then Jason grabs a machete, but a future machete from the future where we are. A future where we now have an Earth 2 because Earth 1 is unlivable. Thanks, Obama.
If you're gonna do it, God bless America.
Speaking of, apparently they tried to execute Jason back in 2008, but it didn't take, so they froze him in 2010, and Rowan, the reanimated chick, acts like Jason's eventual escape was because some suits wanted more money, but he escaped before they got there? It's a little confusing, the plot of this film.
I thought so.
Jason's escape is confirmed, and the Space Marines start assembling while Jason murders a sex-having boy student, while notably leaving the sex-having girl student alive. Then 2 other Marines, one of whom is the previously armless kid, play some sort of crappy video game simulator with graphics inexplicably worse than anything from 2010.
You wanted the best? You got the best.
And Jason shows up and kills them in the game, but then he kills them IRL after they give him their ASL and they go AFK LOL.
What the hell?
Jason then attacks a guy that looks like a botanist based on what's on his desk, but is apparently more like an engineer based on what's coming out of his dumb mouth.
Mess with an engineer, you're gonna wake up in the morning with a waste hose in your bunk.
But before he can get his murder on, Jason is attacked by a bunch of Marines. He escapes, and we cat and mouse for quite a while, but like the space version, so maybe like K-Shun and Squib. I think that's a Star Trek reference, but I wrote this a while ago. Anyway, he breaks one Marine's neck and throws another on a corkscrew thing, and then he slashes Pastor Nina's throat, but not before she makes a real weird noise. Then this guy says what I say whenever I see a Geico commercial. Gecko. He then shoots Jason onto a big ass hook, which works for about 30 seconds before Jason gets off the hook and cuts the dude in half. Oh, and at some point Jason hooks this woman. And hey, now would be a good time for Sergeant Brodsky to get people to report in. Report. Ah, no, now he's grabbed and stabbed. Damn. Is he then bagged? Was it because he lagged? Did his balls sag? How many hours are we into this video by now? My body feels dragged.
Sometimes when I freestyle, I lose confidence.
So that pretty much does it for the Marines, but fortunately they're about to dock with a space station with a ton of Marines on it, except, shit. The ship, now without a pilot,
Real goat
smashes into the space station, blows it up, and just keeps on trucking. The professor assures his students it'll be okay because they're in a high-density shipping lane and some ship is bound to notice them, but they're a little skeptical that'll happen before Jason shows up. But hey, at least Rowan is vaccinated. Oh no! There's Jason. Everybody runs away and attempts to escape the ship on the original little shuttle they came in on, so the engineer heads to the flight deck, one of the girls gets things ready on the shuttle, and another girl does panel things. Look, I don't know the layout of the damn spaceship 455 years into the B-movie future.
250, 450, what's the difference?
The professor stays behind to, I guess, appeal to Jason's desire to become an Instagram influencer.
Fame, money, with my help.
Elsewhere, the sexy robot says
the statistical probability of survival is 12%.
So her creator literally yells, "Bullshit, KM, that's bullshit," and kisses her, and then she says,
statistical probability of survival just went up to 53%.
How? Why? What does it become if he puts his hand on her butt? 69%? High fives Dave. Puts a finger in that butthole and that's 100%. That's 420%.
There's a lot of computation has gone into how can I do more of that with procreation not even being a factor.
Jason, lugging around the professor's severed head, attacks the engineer and electrifies him to death.
Whoa!
This freaks out the girl on the shuttle who locks the doors, won't let anybody inside, despite Rowan calling her honey.
It's a honey, sweetheart, honey, it's Rowan. I need you to open the door.
Come on, baby girl, open up for me, honey. Babe, just a little peek, but no.
Babe! Babe, wait! Babe! 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 Babe, wait, babe, no!
Then Jason just... I'm so tired.
No, babe! Wait!
Then Jason shows up, but so does the sex robot who's been upgraded with extra guns and maybe nipples and Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, the guy says that he
gave her an upload.
Which she and Jason fight, and she pretty thoroughly kicks and or fingers his ass. With a slight assist from a suddenly reappeared Bronsky. She shoots off Jason's arm and leg and eventually his head, and he seems pretty dead, but per usual, they don't launch him into space or stuff him into the space toilet, and when you know it, they knocked him onto the reanimation machine, which, as luck would have it, reanimates him with synthetic material to replace his lost organic material. And I feel like I'm upset about this, but I know that I'm sitting next to a dryer with a blue light in it, and I'm wearing an astronaut helmet made out of felt. So I don't know how serious I feel. I don't feel like a very serious person.
You are not serious people.
Say some Halo shit.
Oh my God, Cortana.
We're giving them back their...
We're giving them back their laundry.
I've already begun.
While that process occurs completely without notice by any character, they determine the ship's hull is bleeding out, which doesn't sound like the correct jargon.
Oh no.
And even though they're contacted by a rescue ship, their ship will explode on itself before they arrive. Well, unless they pull an Event Horizon and explode the bad part of the ship from the good part of the ship. So they heal up Bronski's big, beautiful abs and head off to do exactly that.
This could work.
But of course, they're almost immediately confronted by Jason, who has been rebuilt into some sort of cyberspace gorilla who is bulletproof.
Okay.
Jason's also been pumped full of upload juices and promptly punches the sex robot's head right off. The bomb's planted. The rest of the characters run off the bridge, but the guy with the detonator gets left behind, so he blows himself and Jason up. Speaking of, this guy managed to salvage the sex robot head for probably science.
If I could.
Now you'd think that'd be the end of the movie, but there's still 15 minutes of runtime left. So somehow Jason flies over and punches a hole in the hull. A hull hole, if you will. Oh, and this one girl gets her butthole sucked out the hull hole. And they finally dock with their would-be rescuers, but damn, the power to the door gets cut somehow. So Brodsky needs to do a spacewalk to hopefully turn the power back on, and the others buy time by tricking Jason into a lake camp sexy simulator with sexy teens, and it works for a while, even though Jason pretty immediately nice. And they manage to get the door open, though be exploding. Oops, I almost forgot the sex robot. So Rowan runs back to get that head. She's almost attacked by Jason, but Bronsky shuts the door on them, and the candy-ass looking spaceship that saves them pulls away from their original ship as it explodes. And naturally, Jason still almost manages to get to the ship, but he's tackled mid-vacuum by Bronsky. And they largely burn up, entering Earth 2's atmosphere because, oh, by the way, we've arrived at Earth 2 now. And when you know it, Earth 2 has lakes and horny teens of its own. And they notice the meteor that is Jason's body crashing into their lake, and they go to investigate because time is a flat circle, kids. You know, so weird, like Jason from the Friday the 13th movies was chasing me everywhere and making me recap them all. It was, well, except for the reboot.
What? Because I'm black, I can't listen to Green Day?
You're right, that was dumb.
Did you ever see the reboot? It's weird because despite the last movie being the highest grosses in the whole series, they made a reboot next. That's so weird, right? Because, you know, in that reboot, we're immediately treated to a sumptuous red filter over all the logos. It could be symbolic of blood, or that Jason has heat vision now. Who knows? Anything can happen in a reboot, including Michael Bay, apparently. We first get a flashback to ostensibly the first-ish movie with a sad, desaturated girl in the woods arguing with an older woman until she is tired of arguing and chops off her damned head.
Every minute!
So far, so similar to the originals. Give or take the specific topography of where the severed head rolls around. No sand. One small addition is we officially see little boy Jason rooting around and being sad while he watches his mom get her head cut off, I guess.
Kill for mother.
And now it's present day, and with it comes your standard present day horny teens. They speak very quickly.
Right there. Nice try.
And modernly. Dude. And as hilariously as you might expect for a legacy horror reboot.
Hey, you wanna slap that ass one more time for Daddy?
No, Daddy like that?
Yeah, Daddy does like it. Daddy likes...
I'm not sure they all have the same objective coming,
yeah,
but at least two of them are out here to steal some weed.
Do you know how much money we're gonna make selling this weed?
We're gonna get a lot of money.
Yeah, on top of the cum. They decide to camp for the night and steal the weed in the morning once they're rested up. Smart. So now it's night, and it turns out they're camping near the ruins of Camp Crystal Lake. And also, here's a PBR ad.
Euro shit. This is Pabst Blue American Whopper.
It's no Natty Light, but it gets the job done. And even though it's present day, we haven't quite escaped Jenny's shadow when discussing Jason.
He was like deformed or retarded or something.
Two of the campers break off to talk.
Wear a condom.
And the girl mentions that she's sad because she doesn't like leaving her mom. And the boy's like, nah, dog, your mom told me to take you out here into the woods and raw dog you for your mental health.
Really?
Yeah.
And that seems to work. So they venture deeper into the woods until discovering a ruined cabin. Inside, they find a bunch of weird shit.
Wow, look at that.
Including this locket that we know from the opening is Jason's. They also find Jason's bedroom. Did this kid live at camp? I get that his mom worked there, at least if the earlier movies are to be believed.
I used to work for the Christies.
But also it feels pretty permanent to bring a bed with your name carved into it. Whatever. They keep looking and they find a shrine and a severed head in the walls. So I guess they're sort of rebooting the first several movies? Like that's definitely from the second one, right?
Sure.
Then suddenly somebody starts stabbing through the floor a lot. The dude is eventually dragged down while the girl runs away. Pretty clear who played the floor is lava as a kid and who didn't.
I gotta get to the castle!
Back at camp, the nerd talks about something.
The ephemeris data just didn't sync up.
While the two hotter characters flirt in a way that can only be described as pornographic.
Dude, that sucks.
The nerd is a good wingman though, and when he realizes that the titties, they're coming out, he heads into the woods alone to piss. Oh. But his pissings uncover the weed stash and a serial killer. The porny couple be banging in the tent, but they keep hearing stuff and they assume it's the nerd trying to ruin their amorous moment.
I'm not gonna go out there with a boner.
The dude goes out to yell at him, but all he finds is his friend's severed ear and dead body.
Wait!
Back at the tent, the girl is attacked by a lumbering man mountain who does not have a hockey mask. And the dude runs back to camp to find his recent lover, Amanda! Before he can get to her though. But fortunately, the other girl shows up and oh, she can't do anything. Because Jason apparently runs now? He got 28 days later.
In order to cure, you must first understand.
Cold open over. That means, yes, we've got a new batch of teens that might be arguably even hornier than the first.
I give a wicked blowjob.
Including the guy from Party Down and the chick from Sky High.
It's more complicated than that.
As they wait in line at the gas station, another hot boy shows up and says he's looking for his presumably dead sister from the cold open because it's been 6 months.
Really?
And there's been no sign of her. Then Sky High's boyfriend,
Hey, bro.
and him,
Was he here?
get into a spat. And even though it seems impossible, this batch of teens is way worse at acting than the first batch.
I'm sorry.
They should have flipped them. They should have burned these guys in sleeping bags and macheted them. Why they not macheted? He said, getting canceled.
Why?
Sorry, I watched Puss in Boots and was inspired.
Say hello to my gatito blade.
The teens eventually end up at their destination, a cabin mansion. And for the second time in about as many minutes, the black guy makes a racially charged joke at his own expense.
You gonna ask the one black guy to pump the gas for you? What, because I'm black I can't listen to Green Day?
You're right, that was dumb. So, what kind of music?
Rap.
He and the other minority character do the pot, though, because that's their defining traits other than their non-whiteness.
I saw you with a bowl the other night. No, you. A bowl.
Beer in the ear. Meanwhile, Sad Brother visits an old lady, Chekhov's wood chipper, and eventually the cabin mansion.
No luck?
No.
Sky High feels for this sad brother who coincidentally is a hottie.
Do you want to come?
And she hops up on his motorcycle to cruise around with him as he asks people to tell him where his dead sister is.
Nice.
Much to her douchey boyfriend's horny dismay.
Obviously.
Almost immediately, they discover a broken handheld GPS thing, which is apparently something that the cops never managed to find. Huh, good for them.
Nice.
Oh, forgot to mention there was a weirdo running that wood chipper. The kind of weirdo who literally licks porn magazines. And he goes into the attic to fondle a mannequin. What the f***? And thankfully get massacred by Jason, who is looking rough. But thankfully, Jason finds his signature hockey mask.
Safety's off. And safety off, boys.
Double O, I forgot to mention that Party Down and his horny girlfriend take the car to go topless waveboarding, which is skinny dipping, but rebooted for sophisticated modern audiences. The dude, of course, gets arrowed in the head, causing him to run over his artfully topless girlfriend like in the 7th movie. They're clearly committed to only rebooting the best parts of this wonderful series. She manages to swim under a nearby dock and then is stabbed in the head and lifted out of the water so that we can see that nudity for one last time. Oh! Sky High and Hot Brother apparently searched all day long because now it's night and they try one last creepy broken down cabin just in case.
You really should call the police.
But of course, who lives there? It's friggin' Jason. And he's brought his work home with him. They hide, of course, but for the first time ever in this storied series, Jason turns on the lights. Man, he contains multitudes. He's been rebooted to be really, diverse in his skills. He's probably white. They escape, of course, but in the process, they trip a wire that's attached to Belle's and Jason's weird sex dungeon where, hey, he's apparently keeping the sister alive. Fun!
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
She tries to escape, but it doesn't go great. And we learn the reason that he's keeping her alive is because she sort of looks like his mom. And obviously, where do we keep our moms, Dave? In our sex dungeons, right? Just say it for the video. and for the cops that I'm sending this tape to.
It's okay.
Back at the cabin, another hot girl, who I only know from an episode of Psych, where she played a hot girl, but like crazy.
How else would I be silly?
Dances around, and the Asian guy's like, man, I wish I could have sex with her, but...
I have a better shot of a penguin than that girl.
But are penguins notoriously difficult to have sex with? Or are you saying they're just hard to seduce?
Do you ever see any penguins Of course not.
Or what are we saying here? I've never considered having sex with a penguin, much less how difficult it might be to penetrate a penguin with my sex.
Cloaca.
So I'm intrigued is all. I must learn more. Dave, have you ever had sex with a penguin? I mean, you don't need to answer. The trial's still pending, I know, but...
The daddy penguins protect the egg.
Is that the problem? They're always too tired for sex because they're sitting on the egg all day?
Sitting on the egg.
The male penguin gets off the egg and onto these nuts.
I want you to look cute and cuddly, Private. Today we're gonna blow, boys.
But maybe the reason he'd be bad at penguin sex is because he's just so clumsy. And penguins are so slippery, according to Dave.
I hope this is like most of the script.
It's like 20 more minutes of this. He breaks a chair and is forced to go to the woodshed to get some woodworking tools because I guess he's as good at woodworking as he is bad at penguin sex.
They don't call me the wood wizard because I masturbate a lot.
And while he does that, Sky High's boyfriend takes the hot crazy girl upstairs for some extremely uncomfortably explicit sex while the black guy attempts to masturbate to a sweater catalog.
Lady, I'm about to ruin your perfect day.
You know, a lot of people cite the fifth movie as being too exploitative, but it pales in comparison to this one. And this one can't even lean on that, it was the 80s, everybody was naked and masturbating to sweater catalogs back then, okay?
Gonna have to do.
This was 2009. We're post 9/11 here. All sex needs to be explicitly about fighting terrorism. Sex is solely meant to procreate more freedom-loving patriots who shower with their boobs out. And they don't get folded into a taco, I don't think. I don't remember where we landed on that. Anyway, Hot Brother and Sky High return and they've called the cops, but they can't convince her boyfriend and the hot girl to stop having sex, which is like, fair.
So juicy, dude.
I mean, she ain't no penguin, if you know what I mean.
Come and get it.
I honestly don't think Sky High is even upset about this. I know she's got bigger things going on, but you'd think she'd say something about all the sex, but no.
Brent!
And speaking of screwing things, Jason screws the dude in the shed hard. No! Then he kills the power, as he so often does. And the two white boys angrily yell at each other, and then the black dude heads to the shed to get his friend because he's squirrely, apparently.
Can't get a handle on me.
And because he's armed himself with like a stir-fry pot and a fire poker like he's Captain America.
Surprise you every time.
He gets attacked, but true to his claims, he's pretty squirrely. Just not squirrely enough to avoid getting an axe thrown into his back. But really, who is? He screams for help for a while, but it just ain't coming. Nobody else is squirrely enough. Mean boyfriend grabs a gun while Jason ends approximately 5 straight minutes of feet shots. A cop does show up, but they head outside to steal the cop car as the keys to the motorcycle are apparently gone, and the SUV they came in is, with the naked surfers wherever they went, but Hot Girl gets chucked onto the cop car, so they all just book it for the woods. After a moment, Mean Boyfriend says what I say whenever I run into my long-lost nemesis named Gun, who I haven't seen in a while and whose appearance has been altered after years on the trail, but I'm still fairly sure I know who he is, given that he is, after all, my nemesis.
Are you gone?
I don't know. But fortunately, a truck drives up and seems willing to pick him up, but he's unsure. And he waits just long enough for Jason to make his decision for him. This is what hitchhiking is like now, if it's rebooted. Sky High and Hot Brother break back into Jason's house, and they can finally hear Hot Sister screaming in the basement. They find a trap door and head into Dave's mom's sex dungeon.
What was it?
Fairly quickly, they're reunited, and it feels just so good. They free her and run through the tunnels for a while until Sky High is stabbed I think right through her butthole. I need a more thorough inspection to be sure, but that definitely looks like a butthole injury if I've ever seen one, which I haven't. The hot siblings end up in a flipped over school bus and Jason appears to kill the brother. But if I've learned anything about anything with modern horror movies, he'll be back. And indeed, the hot sister, she be kicking at Jason until, hey, the brother's back. Nice. They run to Chekhov's wood chipper, and though Jason... The sister again references the second movie and pretends to be Jason's mom for a minute, and that buys just enough time to wrap a chain around his neck and throw the other end in the wood chipper for an agonizingly long death that somehow doesn't result in him actually getting wood chippered. He doesn't ever even get ground into so much paste. Oh well, like I always say to Dave after we finish a video.
Say hi to mommy in hell!
They huck Jason's body in the lake because again, they didn't actually wood chip him. Ugh. And oh look. The end. Anyway, we gonna do this vasectomy or what? What are they doing? I gotta get home and watch something else directed by Michael Bay. Something that's more than meets the eye.